Chapter 958. The name of Chongxian Fu had always been a taboo in Zhongenjia. The news was sealed from top to bottom, as if this person had never appeared. Of course, this was to avoid trouble. The elders of Zhongenjia hid the details of Chongxian Fu's death from Cheng Gongsheng, only saying that he died heroically on the battlefield. This was actually a form of protection for Cheng Gongsheng. After all, Chongxian Fu had offended the Qi Emperor, and the words he said before his death were filled with resentment. When Cheng Gongsheng was young, he did not have the ability to investigate the truth. When he grew up, he did not want to touch on Chongxian Fu because of his complicated feelings. Perhaps he would only discover Chongxian Fu's past when he advanced to the outer tower and went to the bewildering world himself. But no matter what Cheng Gongsheng thought, as a friend, Jiang Wang felt that he should tell Cheng Gongsheng about his discovery in the bewildering world. His father might not be responsible enough, but he was still great and glorious. As a friend, Jiang Wang hoped that Cheng Gongsheng would be able to forgive him, even if he could not. Even if Cheng Gongsheng could never forgive him, he should at least let him know that he had a father who made great contributions to the human race. It was not shameful. In detail, Jiang Wang's friends all had different personalities, but they were all very reliable. Making friends was a process of mutual selection. For example, Jiang Wang initially met Yin Fu and Gao Zhe at the same time. But as they got along, he gradually lost contact with Gao Zhe. It was not to say that Gao Zhe's character was bad, but their personalities were not very compatible. Gao Zhe was too calculative in some matters and always put his own interests first. Now, they were all fair-weather friends, eating and drinking together and occasionally treating each other to banquets. There was no need to count on anything else. Of course, what would happen in the future would depend on how they got along. Jiang Wang did not dare to say that he could see through people. After all, there was no knowing what was in a person's heart. He only treated people with sincerity and exchanged sincerity for sincerity. If he couldn't trade, then so be it. As for Yin Fu, he was a person with a sense of propriety. He was also extravagant and generous, spending money like water. No one would feel uncomfortable when interacting with him. However, the more easygoing people looked, the more difficult it was for them to open their hearts to others. Being chased and beaten up by Jiang Wuyo was one of the rare times when he felt emotional. Perhaps he also felt guilty towards Yu Huchang. In short, when he was troubled, the first thing he thought of was drinking with Jiang Wang. His group of bad friends wanted to see him get beaten up, but at the same time, they sincerely wanted to help him solve his problems. On the Tianya stage, the support he gave on behalf of himself was a response to the word friend. Give him a peach and return him with a fine jade. That was how their friendship developed. In the morning after the hangover, Jiang Wang sat on a stone chair in the courtyard, worrying silently. "What are you doing here so early in the morning?" Su Xiangqian appeared out of nowhere and said with a mischievous smile, "Are you still reminiscing about yesterday's prestige?" He knew it would be difficult to get over Zhu Biqiong's matter, so he deliberately made a joke here. However, it was inevitable that he would be sad. However, during the 5 days when Ji Xiaoqing died, Jiang Wang had slowly accepted this matter. What he was worried about now was something else entirely. He glanced at that smooth and shiny forehead. Although he knew this guy wasn't very reliable, he still felt a little embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he said to Su Xiangqian, if Jiang Wang asked very formally, "If you owe a lot of money, you can't repay it right now. What will you do if you can't pay me back for the time being?" Su Xiangqian quickly and vigilantly said, "I don't have money." Jiang Wang was a little stunned. Perhaps realizing that Jiang Wang wouldn't borrow money from him, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "When it comes to owing money, no matter how much you owe," he thought very seriously and said, "I don't have money." Jiang Wang didn't understand. "So the problem is solved?" Su Xiangqian said without hesitation, "You can either kill me or wait until I have money. Of course, if you hit me, I'll run." Jiang Wang was silent for a moment and asked again, "Then when will you pay it back?" Su Xiangqian looked at him as if he was talking nonsense. "Of course when I have money." Jiang Wang blushed with shame. "Then when will you have money?" Su Xiangqian spread out his hands and said matter-of-factly, "I don't know about that." Now he understood. He was shameless. Only then did Jiang Wang remember that this guy had received many years' worth of salary in advance from the academy in Lindsay. Every time the old dean saw him, he went to find a broom. Surprisingly, he didn't beat him to death and even let him run out to sea. Next time, he would donate an iron broom. After all, it wasn't easy to sweep the accumulated dirt and gravel. Regardless of what he thought, Jiang Wang couldn't learn Su Xianqian's shameless methods. "This, Brother Jiang, you're in the wrong here." Unexpectedly, Su Xianqian's attitude changed completely. "You owe money and don't pay it back? How can you owe money and not pay it back?" He was indignant, he was agitated, and he was filled with righteous indignation. "I am a man of indomitable spirit. Every word of mine is a nail. If you owe someone money, you must pay it back. If you can't pay it back, your brother will help you. Even if I have to sell everything, I will help you pay it back. You must not make a mistake and become an untrustworthy person." Jiang Wang was stunned by this sudden voice of justice. He wanted to knock open the extremely high forehead in front of him to see what the hell was inside. But when he glanced around, he saw Zhao Wuyin and Ji Shu standing outside the courtyard. These two girls had unknowingly walked to the entrance of the courtyard. Instantly, he understood. It was like this. This guy was simply crazy. In order to get close, he didn't hesitate to paint his friends black and wash himself white like snow. Jiang Wang gnashed his teeth in hatred. He wanted to hit this guy's high head even higher. But in front of Zhao Wuyin, it was indeed inconvenient to hurt his face. He could only squeeze through his teeth and say, "This brother has learned. When we have time, we should chat more. Let me learn more about your upright and outspoken character. It will also help my despicable soul." Of course, Su Xianqian knew that the chat Jiang Wang was talking about was not as simple as chatting. But he didn't care. If he fought, he couldn't win. But so what? As long as he didn't get beaten in front of Zhao Wuyin, it was fine. He nodded his head heavily and said, "No problem. Chat more? Good brother. With me here, I will not let you go astray." Jiang Wang was about to spit out a few harsh words when Ji Shu came running over. Twisting the corner of her clothes, she asked shyly, "You, how much money do you owe?" Su Xianqian slapped his forehead and suddenly remembered something. He turned to Zhao Wuyin and said, "That's right, Sister Zhao. I have something to ask you. Come, let's talk here." Zhao Wuyin didn't want to pay attention to him, but she couldn't resist his winks and could only follow him out. Su Xianqian hurriedly led Zhao Wuyin out of the courtyard. Before he stepped out of the courtyard, he winked at Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang was completely baffled. Su Gaogao was crazy. Were his eyes dry or what? While Jiang Wang was still in a daze, Ji Shu asked again, "How much do you owe?" Only then did he realize that this little girl wanted to help him pay his debt. But why? He didn't understand. It seemed that he had only met this little girl from the Longmen Academy a few times. Were all the students of the Longmen Academy so generous? Jiang Wang was completely unaware that Su Gaogao had secretly put in a lot of effort. He had only met her a few times, but Su Xianqian had already described her 100 times. Unforgettable at first sight, mentioned many times, asked about you last time, he thinks you are very cute. But no matter what the little girl thought, Jiang Wang couldn't let her help him pay his debt. What was the point of repaying the debt of the owner? "No." Jiang Wang smiled and said, "Su Gaogao was joking with me just now. He asked me if I could buy his hair with money." Ah, hair was very important. So Ji Shu's attention was diverted. "Can I?" So he flew into a rage out of humiliation and asked me to pay him back. "Did he give you money?" "No, but he said that he spent his feelings and expectations." "Ah, isn't that cheating?" "Yes, this person is used to extorting." Jiang Wang sighed. "I still say the same thing. You have to keep a distance from him." "Yes, yes, yes." Ji Shu nodded. "You told me last time." After that, I kept a distance from him when I talked to him. "Very good. Keep it up." Jiang Wang encouraged her. Although he didn't have the heart to trick such a naive little girl, it wasn't a good idea to let Su Xianqian make use of her. It was better to stay away from Su Xianqian. After all, those who were close to him were bald. Chapter 9:59. Jiang Wuyo did not spend the night on Neverwinter Island. She left after drinking. This was a responsible attitude. Regardless of Cheng Geng Sheng, Li Longchuan, or Yin Fu, it was not suitable for them to be too close to Jiang Wuyo. Unless they were like Lei Zhanqian's Lei family, which was already bound to Jiang Wuqi and could not be separated. Jiang Wuyo's departure was good for everyone. Before she left, Jiang Wang returned the letter. She did not mention the agreement with Jiang Wang, and indeed, there was no need to mention it. Jiang Wang would remember. In the future, if Jiang Wuyo asked for anything, Jiang Wang would definitely do his best, even if it was to help him fight for the dragon. The trip to the bewildering world was settled. Jiang Wang was not as thick-skinned as Su Xiangqian, so she began to prepare to repay the debt one by one. Jiang Wang had already thought of how to repay the box of talismans he owed Yin Fu. When he was hunting the sea race, he obtained a few bone spurs that could block the 5 elements' elemental energy. It was extremely mysterious. When he returned, he would ask Lien Ke to forge it into a set of Dharma artifacts. It was equivalent to a talisman that could block water, fire, and all kinds of elemental energy. It should be able to match the value of these 100 talismans. Next was the icy heavy thumb ring, which he could return in its original form. However, he had to make a trip to Ice Phoenix Island and personally return it to Li Fengyao. Although Li Longchuan was by his side, there was no reason for him to do this for him. This was not how things should be done. He should at least express his gratitude in person and remember this favor in his heart. Other than that, there was the Mirage King's Pearl that Li Longchuan had obtained from Master Ninshua. During the battle, he had lost it in the battlefield of the bewildering world. It was difficult to accurately estimate the value of this item. It was an extremely rare illusion treasure. However, Jiang Wang had also accumulated some good items. After rummaging through, there were still some that could be offset. Brother Longchuan, Jiang Wang said somewhat embarrassedly, the Mirage King's Pearl you lent me was lost in the bewildering world during the battle. I'll use this dragon imprisoning rope that I got from Hai Zoming as repayment. What do you think? Borrowing money could easily make friends estranged. Most of the time, it was because it was difficult to grasp the proper balance between borrowing and returning. The best way to deal with it was for both sides to be open and honest. There was no need to be coy. They would do what they should do. There would be no suspicion, and naturally, there would be no grudges. The appearance of the dragon imprisoning rope was ordinary. It was just a gray rope, but if one looked closely, it was not difficult to notice that it was extraordinary. The faint shadow of the dragon and the fine lines were all illustrating the value of the item. This treasure was said to be able to touch the binding, but it had great limitations. The most difficult part was how to touch the opponent. In a real battle, no one would recklessly try to use your magic tool. However, despite this limitation, it was still more valuable than the Mirage King's Pearl. After all, the effect was indeed very strong, and it was not at all inferior to an outer sect cultivator. Once touched by it, one could only be captured without putting up a fight. That time in the bewildering world, Jiang Wang had almost no strength left. The dragon imprisoning rope that he had set up in advance still left him with an opponent who fled in panic. A treasure like the Mirage King's Pearl could only be maximized in the hands of an expert in illusions. It had even greater limitations. Moreover, truly powerful illusions often had the ability to kill. However, the illusions created by the Mirage King's Pearl were just illusions. This reduced its value by another level. Master Ninyu had used it to cheat others, and he could be considered to have played a new trick. Li Longchuan did not reject Jiang Wang's attempt to repay the debt, but he said seriously, its value is more than enough. Moreover, the Mirage King's Pearl could only be obtained because of your contribution. Speaking of this, there's no end to it. Jiang Wang waved his hand and deliberately smiled. Anyway, I lost your Mirage King's Pearl, so I must repay you. I learned the imprisoning chains from a resting god. If I cultivate properly, it may not be worse than the dragon imprisoning rope. Therefore, this item is not that important to me. If you think you've taken advantage of me, just compensate me with a few hundred vitality stones. Of course, this was a joke. Whether the dragon imprisoning rope was worth so many vitality stones was still a question. The main point was that there were some things that needed to be settled before becoming friends, but there was no need to be too clear about everything. If he really wanted to calculate, although he did not lose the icy heavy ring, should he pay the rent? Li Longchuan did not hesitate anymore. He immediately put away the dragon imprisoning rope and said straightforwardly, "Okay, Gao Gao owes me at least 800 vitality stones, if not 1,000. I'll transfer the debt to you right now." Jiang Wang rolled his eyes. Who can get the debt from Su Xiangqian? Both of them laughed. Not all of his friends were free. Apart from Su Xiangqian, it could be said that everyone had their own matters to attend to. Previously, they had stayed on Crescent Moon Island because of his matters. For example, Chung Gung Sheng did not show up for an entire day as he was busy with overseas affairs. This fatty would not let go of the opportunity to consolidate his influence at sea. Yin Fu had already rushed back to Beijing ahead of time. It probably had something to do with the daughter of the imperial court minister. Therefore, when they went to Ice Phoenix Island, there were only Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan. Using the excuse of celebrating Jiang Wang, they invited Zhao Wuyin and Ji Shu to drink. Su Xiangqian turned his head and began to dislike Jiang Wang and the others for being an eyesore. He wished he could kick them away, so of course he would not follow. Li Longchuan was a little unhappy. After all, Su Xiangqian had cheated him out of the sea by acting pitiful. Every day, he would not let him go. Now that there was progress in his relationship with Zhao Wuyin, he turned his face and did not recognize him. What a bastard! Jishu seemed to be interested in Ice Phoenix Island. Her words were full of yearning, but in the end, she could only follow her senior sister. Zhao Wuyin would not allow Jishu to go to Ice Phoenix Island. Coming to Neverwinter Island could be considered as making friends. How could a little girl follow others everywhere? Boarding a dragon bone boat, there was no one else besides the boatman. Jiang Wang stood on the deck, facing the sea breeze, feeling a long-lost freedom. Li Longchuan said with a smile, "Return the icy thumb ring and wait for the Lin family friend to finish the set of magical artifacts. Pay off the debt and relax. Am I right?" "Yes. Finally, I can have a good sleep." Jiang Wang also smiled, but for some reason, he felt that he seemed to have forgotten something. Almost as soon as the dragon bone boat carrying Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan left, a figure walked out from the shadow of a big tree. "This kid is famous now." The person looked at a map in his hand and said, "Neverwinter Island. Is it here?" "Who is it?" Neverwinter Island security was triggered almost immediately, and a team of guards quickly approached. Of course, it was also because the person did not deliberately hide. "I am Mobile Fu Yanqing." The person smiled and said, "I am here to ask Jiang Wang for a debt. This is his territory, right? TSK, he won't kill me just to renege on the debt, right?" It was obvious that after leaving the bewildering world, even someone like Fu Yanqing had become more lively. He even knew how to joke, although it was not very funny. The guards were skeptical, but seeing the person's temperament, they did not think he was a liar. "Please wait here for a moment. I will go and inform him." Fu Yanqing smiled. "Go ahead." He enjoyed the air of the modern world, the freedom, peace of the modern world. Everything in the modern world. Not long after, Chong Xian, who had received the news, hurried over. From afar, he began to pat his chest and said, "Brother Wang's business is my business. Tell me, how much does Brother Wang owe you? I will pay it back for him." His voice was very loud, as if he was afraid that no one would know about his friendship with Jiang Wang. People in Qi were really rich. Even a random person was so generous, Fu Yanqing thought, and said with a smile, 10 taels of bewildering crystal is equivalent to 1,000 vitality stones. 1 scorching sun flying boat can be exchanged for 1 thorn boat, or 3,000 primeval stones. Young Master Xian waved his hand and ordered his subordinates generously, "Give it to him. It's just 4,000 vitality stones." "Wait," he reacted and widened his eyes in horror. "Vitality stones?" Chapter 960. Jiang Wang, who was on the road. He didn't know that his creditor had come to Neverwinter Island. He didn't mean to renege on the debt, but he really didn't think of it for a while. Since he came back from the maze world, his attention had been on the Tinya stage. The first thing he thought of was the debts that happened on the Tinya stage. Ice Phoenix Island was in the north of the entire offshore archipelago. It was covered in snow all year round, and the glaciers didn't melt. To be honest, that place was a cold and bitter place. It was a little far from the bustling area of the offshore archipelago. The resources were relatively poor. The Lee family of Sherman developed overseas a little late. Unlike the Tian family of Days, they were the first to respond to Chi Ting's call to develop overseas, and they developed the best compared to other families. As a late entrant, when other forces were fighting fiercely, the Lee family of Sherman chose to take a different approach and start from the sidelines. But only a family that had been tempered in a difficult place like Sherman County had the tenacity to calmly face the bitter cold and the courage to develop a barren land. On a glacier that was as hard as a rock, they carved out the future of a top family. Now Ice Phoenix Island had been developed very well, and the environment was very suitable for Li Fengyao's supernatural power, which was convenient for her cultivation. Therefore, she would go to Ice Phoenix Island almost every year for a while, and this island was basically run by her now. The Dragon Bone boat went all the way north. Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan's fate began with that Xiushan Bao. The two of them didn't spend much time alone in private, and each time they were accompanied by other friends. It was a rare experience to travel together on the same boat. Jiang Wang had been through hundreds of battles, and Li Longchuan had a profound family background, and he was from a family of generals. He also had a lot of experience. The two of them sat cross-legged on the deck, facing the sea breeze and the sky. Whether it was cultivation or fighting, they had a lot of topics to talk about. Speaking of which, Elder Qin Jun of the Fishing Sea Tower was also very murderous when he was young. Li Longchuan said as usual, but his eyes glanced into the cabin. Jiang Wang immediately received a message. There was a situation in the cabin. Li Longchuan had the Zhu Wei supernatural power, and Jiang Wang didn't doubt his sensitivity. Even you, from a family of generals, said that he was murderous. It seems that he really is murderous. As Jiang Wang spoke, he responded to Li Longchuan with his eyes, indicating that he was ready. He continued, "She's the second elder of the Calm Sea Elders?" As soon as the last word was spoken, clang, with his sword unsheathed, Jiang Wang dashed into the cabin. Because he was worried about the boatman at the other end of the cabin, he did not use a large-scale Dao technique. A translucent arrow shadow appeared in front of Jiang Wang. With a thought, the arrow was released. Li Longchuan's arrow was used to scout the path. However, the moment the cabin door was broken open, a panicked voice sounded, "Lord Jiang, it's me." The haggard, middle-aged woman curled up into a ball, shivering. It was indeed a familiar face. The elder of the Five Immortals sect, Fan Qingqing. Jiang Wang stopped his sword. Li Longchuan's arrow of thought was also hanging in front of her. If she had made a sound just now, she would have been dead. Fan Qingqing, who was at the inner palace level, could be considered a figure in the Summer Island. However, it was impossible for her to withstand the attacks of Jiang Wang or Li Longchuan, not to mention the two of them working together. What was surprising was, how could she sneak into the cabin without being detected by Jiang Wang? Although Jiang Wang's senses were not as sharp as Li Longchuan's, he was still the strongest inner palace expert overseas. He was much stronger than Fan Qingqing. "Why are you here?" Jiang Wang asked with a frown. Fan Qingqing's eyes immediately turned red, and she was about to cry. Before she started crying, Jiang Wang quickly asked, "Elder Fang, what happened?" The boatman at the other end of the cabin, who was operating the Dragon Bone boat, only now realized that something had happened. He hurriedly picked up an iron oar and bumped into the cabin. He looked at Li Longchuan and asked, "Young master?" Without special reasons, it would take a long time to travel from Neverwinter Island to Ice Phoenix Island by boat. Therefore, Li Longchuan specially arranged for a boat, and the boatman was also from Ice Phoenix Island. Seeing that Jiang Wang indeed knew the middle-aged woman who suddenly appeared, Li Longchuan dispersed the arrow of thought and waved his hand. "It's okay. Go and steer the boat." The boatman turned around and left the cabin without hesitation. He obeyed every order as if he was in the army. The Lee family of Stone Gate's management style was evident. However, after this interruption, Jiang Wang could roughly guess what had happened. The Five Immortals sect had testified for Jiang Wang on the Tianya stage and stood on Neverwinter Island's side. They wanted to use the relationship with Neverwinter Island to get closer to Qi and get rid of the exploitation of Granny Bijou and the forces behind her. But now, obviously, something had happened. There was no need to think too deeply. This was most likely related to the revenge of Gu Huaixin's forces. On the Tianya stage, he and Ji Shaoqing had a life-and-death duel, but the others were not idle. This world was still moving forward according to its previous inertia, and the protection promised by Neverwinter Island obviously did not come into effect. Perhaps Neverwinter Island did not care much about the Five Immortals sect from the beginning, or Neverwinter Island was powerless. Even though they had the intention and the power, they did not have the time to do anything. No matter what, Fan Qingqing was an old woman who had seen many storms. She would not be unable to control her emotions and tear up in front of a young man. She just wanted to ask for some sympathy in exchange for more help. Jiang Wang stopped her in time, so she could not continue to hold back her tears. But she did not answer the question immediately. Instead, she glanced at the handsome Li Longquan. Jiang Wang said directly, "This is my good friend Li Longquan. If you have anything to say, just say it. It's okay. You guys take your time." Li Longquan simply turned around and walked out of the deck. Jiang Wang trusted him, but he did not feel that he should see through all his friend's secrets. She was just a mediocre woman in the inner mansion realm. Since she wanted to keep it a secret, he would do as she wished. After Li Longquan walked out of the cabin, Fan Qingqing cast a spell to isolate the sound inside and outside the cabin. The Wuxian sect focused on shape, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Research in these areas naturally had its own uniqueness. The sound of the outside world was completely isolated. There was a kind of trance, as if they were in a silent execution order. If he wants to pry into something, even if your spells are 10 times more exquisite, they can't stop him. Jiang Wang shook his head and asked, "What exactly do you want to do that needs to be so secretive?" Thump! Fan Qingqing directly knelt in the cabin. "Lord Jiang, please save me." This kneeling was really sudden. When she first met Jiang Wang, she still called him little brother. But now, she only dared to call him Lord Jiang. First, it showed that her current situation was really difficult. Second, it was enough to prove Jiang Wang's reputation after the battle at the Tianya stage. Jiang Wang turned sideways in time and did not accept her kneeling. No matter what the reason was, after all, she stood up for him at the Tianya stage. Moreover, she was so much older than him. He really could not accept her kneeling calmly. He only raised his hand and said, "Tell me what happened first. Only then will I know what to do." He did not promise to help. Those who were trustworthy would not make promises lightly. Fan Qingqing did not get up. She only said with red eyes, "The Wuxian sect is finished. The main hall of the sect is also destroyed. The elders are all dead. The sect master is also dead." Chapter 961. The entire Five Immortal sect was massacred. Jiang Wang was stunned when he heard this. He expected that Fan Qingqing's encounter should be related to the revenge of Gu Huaixin's forces, but he didn't expect it to be such a tragic ending. Speaking of which, this matter had a lot to do with him. If he and Sheng hadn't made this move, the Five Immortal sect would have inevitably fallen into the hands of Granny Bijou, but they wouldn't have been massacred. However, Jiang Wang immediately realized that something was wrong. No matter what, Gu Huaixin's forces belonged to the Fishing Sea Tower. The Fishing Sea Tower was a major sect in the world and had its own style. Of course, the Fishing Sea Tower didn't lack thunderous methods, but they would definitely be punished for massacring a sect. They would be held accountable and punished, and then thunderous. As long as the Ocean Fishing Tower still wanted to unite the offshore islands and establish the order of the Ocean Fishing Tower in this territory, they shouldn't be executed without a reason. But what crime did the five immortal sect commit? There was no problem for Fan Qingqing and the others to testify against Granny Bijou on the Tianya stage. There was no rule that didn't allow people to testify against evil. Even Wei Sun didn't punish them. Jiang Wang had a plan in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He only asked who did it. Who else could it be? Fan Qingqing said with hatred. This middle-aged woman was emotional at this moment, her eyes full of hatred, and she pointed her spear at the fishing sea tower. Then she said sadly, Prince Jiang, you and young Master Chongxian promised to protect the five immortal sect, but now everyone knows that you are a man of your word. You won't leave us alone, right? Yes, I will, Jiang Wang said. Shang persuaded you to testify because he was sure that you wouldn't be in any danger. Wantonly massacring an entire sect, this is the way of evil. What does the fishing sea tower want to do? Do you still want the righteousness of the Sea Suppression Alliance? Can they stop the world from talking? Jiang Wang was very indignant. Tell me, who did it? Who slaughtered your five immortal sect? I will definitely seek justice for you. We can't touch the sea fishing tower, but the mastermind has to come out and take responsibility. With his reputation that shook the islands, his words now had the power to resonate on the ground. Fan Qingqing covered her face with her hands and cried, I don't want any justice. I can't afford to offend Fishing Sea Tower. I only beg you, Prince Jiang, to help me and bring me back to Qi. I will never come back to this sad place again. Jiang Wang burst into fury. Is the ocean fishing tower still hunting you blatantly? Fan Qingqing said sorrowfully. Of course not on the surface, but in secret. Prince Jiang, I really have no other way. I can't escape on my own. Your majestic deeds at the Tianya stage have spread all over the islands. I know your relationship with Mr. Chongxian, so I deliberately waited outside the Neverwinter Island and shamelessly came to beg you. During this period of time, it was naturally the safest to stay by Jiang Wang's side. After the battle at the Tianya stage, the conflict between Jiang Wang and the sea fishing tower was irreparable. For example, he had some friendship with Yanglu before, but now it was completely broken. However, the sea fishing tower wouldn't do anything to him and wouldn't give Qi a chance to threaten him. And who could be sure that the military god of the Qi didn't have his eyes on Jiang Wang now? After all, Jiang Qingyang was the first on the ocean merit roll, and he had suppressed all the intermansion cultivators of the fishing ocean pavilion with his own strength on the Tianya stage. He had truly displayed the might of the state of Qi. How could Qi not take it seriously? This was also the reason why Jiang Wang was still leisurely paying off his debt in the offshore islands instead of running back to Qi immediately. There was no need for him to panic. However, did Fan Qingqing really come to him to ask for protection to avoid being hunted down by the sea fishing tower? At that time, the Five Immortals sect had accused Granny Bijou, and the one who hated the Five Immortals sect the most should be Granny Bijou. But Granny Bijou was gone now. Of course, Gu Huaixin's faction had a motive to take revenge on the Five Immortals sect, but was it really appropriate to do so? Did they really not care about the consequences? Moreover, after the death of his most trusted disciple in Tianjiao, Gu Huaixin still had the mood to do such a ruthless thing. He slaughtered the Five Immortals sect and hunted them all over the world. Did he really want to kill all the cultivators of the Five Immortals sect? There were too many doubts. It was true that Fan Qingqing and Jiang Wang had reached a tacit understanding and cooperated at that time, but this didn't affect Jiang Wang's judgment of her. She had never been a simple person, and she was never honest. Elder Fong, of course, I have to take care of your matters, Jiang Wang said in a gentle tone, then suddenly changed the topic and became agitated. At the same time, I am also responsible for the matter of the Five Immortals sect. You just have to tell me who led the team and did it, and you don't have to worry about the rest. I will take care of it. Fan Qingqing was stunned for a moment. Jiang Wang's entire overseas trip was for his friends. Therefore, she could certainly confirm that this young man had a sense of responsibility in Tianjiao. This was also the reason why she came to him for help. However, this was too much of a sense of responsibility. After taking care of the living, he took the initiative to take care of the dead. After taking care of her, he also took care of her entire sect. Jiang Wang's voice deepened. What? Who killed your sect leader? Who killed your fellow sect members? You don't even know these things? Fan Qingqing's heart trembled, and she hurriedly said, I really didn't see who it was. The reputation of brazenly killing the Tianjiao of the sea fishing tower at the Tianya stage was too terrifying. It was said that Ji Shaoqing's master was also present at that time, but due to the rules, he could only watch. How fierce was the person who killed the personal disciple of a perfected person in front of him? Fan Qingqing was really scared. If she had not had no other choice, she would not have taken this step. If it happened too suddenly, it's also very important that you really didn't see clearly. Jiang Wang's attitude was very good. Seeing that Fan Qingqing was a little flustered, he even comforted her and then continued. You were implicated by me in this matter, and I have an unshirkable responsibility. You stay here at ease. Let me write a few letters and ask someone to investigate who did it. I will definitely give you an explanation before you leave the offshore islands. Can you not give me an explanation? Can't you send me away first? No, you killed the Tianjiao of the sea fishing tower and offended them. Hurry up and go back to the Qi. What do you want to do? Do you have to court death at sea? Fan Qingqing had 10,000 complaints in her heart, but she did not dare to say any of them. Sir Jiang, can we go back to the Qi first and then slowly investigate the details? She forced a bitter smile. I'm scared out of my wits. I just want to hide first. She was about to go crazy. She had seen Jiang Wang's connections. If his friends really had the ability to find out something, she would definitely be exposed. What should she do then? Seeing Fan Qingqing like this, Jiang Wang's last trace of patience disappeared. This person was too dishonest. Forget it. Jiang Wang shook his head and said, Elder Fong, we have a friendship. Logically speaking, I am willing to help you. However, you came to me for help and asked me to take the risk. You're not sincere at all. You're covering the left and the right with clouds and mist. Is this the attitude of asking for help? It's really disappointing. Do you think that you can fool me at will because I am young? He gave an ultimatum. If you get off the boat now, I can pretend that I never saw you. After hearing Jiang Wang's words, Fan Qingqing knew that her plan had failed. However, if she had another choice, she would not have boarded this dragon bone boat at all. She would not have knelt down and begged for mercy in front of a young man. If she got off the boat now, she would definitely die. She cried again. Sir Jiang, I admit that I mentioned the sea fishing tower just to make you feel guilty and help me. I really don't know who destroyed the 5 immortal sect. I only found out that today is Jiang Wang's birthday in the real world. It's January 28th. Happy birthday, Jiang Qingyang. Chapter 962. Just as Jiang Wang expected, the culprit who annihilated the 5 immortals sect was not from the sea fishing tower. Fan Qingqing was a cultivator born and raised on the island, so she could recognize the people from the sea fishing tower. The possibility of Gu Huaixin's forced killing with a borrowed knife was almost non-existent. In the whole world, there was no stable force that would hire someone to assassinate in their own territory. A stable, safe, and prosperous offshore archipelago was in the best interest of the sea fishing tower and Gu Huaixin's force. Even if Gu Huaixin really wanted to attack the 5 immortals sect, he would only find a dignified way to do it, and not do it secretly like this. That would be destroying one's own great wall and digging one's own foundation. Who else would be so ruthless to the 5 immortals sect? Jiang Wang frowned. You don't know what enemies the 5 immortals sect has. Fan Qingqing was afraid that Jiang Wang would not believe her, so she said anxiously, the 5 immortals sect can only make a name in Summer Island, and they don't even go to Haimen Island. How can they be qualified to make enemies in other places? The only enemy they have is the Furious Whale Gang, which is also in Summer Island, but you know their strength. If it was not the Sea Fishing Tower or other enemies, then it was the 5 immortals sect. What other secrets did they have? Tell me what you know. Jiang Wang lost his patience. The annihilation of the 5 immortals sect had nothing to do with him. He was still listening to her purely because of their previous cooperation. But this woman was so insincere. Not to mention that there was only an exchange before. Even if there was a friendship, it should have been broken. Fan Qingqing did not lack the ability to observe people's expressions. Seeing Jiang Wang's impatience, she immediately described, there were a total of 3 people who attacked. They were all wearing cloaks and black robes, and their true faces were hidden. The leader had a green light in his hand, and he had an extremely dark power. It was very, very complicated. I can't describe it. But in a single exchange, the sect leader and several elders were all killed. Even though they were already out of danger, Fan Qingqing's voice was still filled with fear when she described the scene. It could be seen how much fear that scene brought to her. Jiang Wang was expressionless, but his heart skipped a beat. According to Fan Qingqing's description, wasn't that Yingguan? Fan Qingqing might not have recognized the power of the curse, but Jiang Wang was very familiar with it. If that person was really Yingguan, it would not be difficult for him to instantly kill the 5 immortal sects, outer house sect leader, and a few inner house elders. Jiang Wang analyzed silently in his heart. Yingguan, who had never worn a King Yinluo mask before, had even donned a cloak to cover his face. From this, it could be seen that Doorless Hell's actions were rather secretive this time. It seemed that the newly established Sea Suppression Alliance was still pressuring them. The Sea Suppression Alliance would definitely investigate such a case. Jiang Wang had subconsciously suspected the Fishing Ocean Tower. However, since it wasn't the Fishing Ocean Tower, they had to give the 5 immortal sect justice. This was the responsibility of a leader. Of course, Fan Qingqing might not dare to trust him. Ever since the assassination in Linzi, only 5 of the 10 great Yamakings of Hell were left standing. On this occasion, 3 Yamakings had been mobilized at once, and King Qingguang was leading them in person. Any Yamaking of Hell had the power to single-handedly destroy the 5 immortal sect. What was King Qingguang's motive for making such a big fuss? Whose mission did they accept? Who was the mastermind? If it wasn't a mission, which Yamaking was obsessed with the 5 immortal sect? No matter which one it was, it could only mean that the 5 immortal sect had a big secret. What was that secret? Jiang Wang was not anxious. He asked, "Those people you mentioned were so powerful. How did you escape?" 2 more people came later. Fan Qingqing recalled carefully. One of them was an old man with white hair. He had 2 strands of black hair at his temples. The rest of his hair was white. He was very strong, very strong. He blocked the attack of 3 black-robed men alone. There was also a woman who didn't participate in the battle. She wore a green headscarf, and her eyes were very bright. She was probably in the soaring dragon realm. She might be a junior of the old man. They seemed to have some grudges with the 3 black-robed men. In short, they fought as soon as they met. That was how I took the opportunity to escape. Jiang Wang's eyelids twitched. This was too much of a coincidence. Both parties were actually acquaintances. The woman with the green headscarf and bright eyes was only in the soaring dragon realm. Wasn't that Lin Yuxi? Zheng Xiangming had once reminded him that Lin Yuxi had an extraordinary background. The old man with the white hair who fought against the Yamaking was probably the big shot behind him. The powerhouses of the blue metal system naturally had a deep grudge against the Yamaking of the Hell. The Hell's assassination in Linzi was a slap to the blue metal's face. The blue metal pursued them vigorously, causing the Hell's Gate to suffer heavy losses. Moreover, when they parted a few days ago, Lin Yuxi had said that he wanted to pursue the Big Rat, the Yamaking who was hiding overseas and had connections with Wu Yu. With Lin Yuxi's strength alone, it was impossible for him to deal with the Yamaking of the Hell's Gate. It was probably because of this that the old man appeared. This also proved the identity of the black-robed men. As the leader of the Hell's Gate, it was normal for Yingguan to come to the aid of the other Yamakings. It seemed that the old man by Lin Yuxi's side was really strong. Among the people in this world who understood Yingguan's strength, Jiang Wang was definitely one of them. He saw with his own eyes that Yingguan betrayed the Yu Nation and fought against the commander of the Monument Army, Zheng Qiyang. He had discussed this with Cheng Gongsheng. Chung Gungsheng believed that Ying Guan's path of cultivation would be difficult if he realized his potential too early. He also thought so, but he didn't expect that although the path of cultivation was rugged and difficult, Ying Guan would progress so quickly. Later, Jiang Wang saw Ying Guan gamble with his life and become a god in front of the god of capture, Yulong. His imagination was actually subverted. There was only a 1 in 10,000 chance of breaking through the limits of the mortal body, and he still had to face the attack of a god. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. It could be said that he had witnessed Ying Guan's extremely fast and powerful steps with his own eyes. That time when he cursed Wu Yu from afar, he was also shocked. He had turned a narrow and winding path into a smooth path to the heavens. Even after becoming a god, he was still able to maintain rapid progress. This person's talent was definitely not inferior to anyone that Jiang Wang had seen so far. And even with Ying Guan's strength after becoming a god, he was still blocked by that old man with 2 Yama Kings who were definitely among the strongest in the outer tower. And the old man even brought along a burden, like Lin Yuxi. He was definitely strong. What happened to them later? Jiang Wang asked. Did you hide because those black-robed men were still hunting you down? Lin Yuxi followed a blue metal expert to hunt down the Corner King, and just happened to run into Ying Guan and the others who were slaughtering the 5 Immortals sect. Based on Jiang Wang's understanding of Ying Guan might have deliberately used the Corner King to set up an ambush. If he could kill a blue metal expert, Ying Guan wouldn't feel any pressure at all. Fan Qingqing shook her head. How would I dare to stay at the scene and wait for the results? I immediately fled far away. But I know that they won't let me go. It seemed that she was finally ready to reveal the truth. Jiang Wang raised his eyebrows. Oh, I really don't know who they are. Fan Qingqing gritted her teeth and said, but I know why they want to destroy the 5 Immortals sect. Looking into Jiang Wang's clear and calm eyes, Fan Qingqing made up her mind. They are here for the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace of the 5 Immortals sect. As long as you promise to protect me, I am willing to give it to you. The inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace of the 9 Great Immortals Palace of the near ancient times. Jiang Wang was indeed surprised. He was the first to come into contact with the 5 Immortals sect, and a large part of the reason was that he felt that the word immortals was very mysterious, and that it might be related to the Immortals Palace of the near ancient times. But after coming into contact with it, he gave up on this idea. The Tao techniques of the 5 Immortals sect that involved the 5 senses were indeed very useful, but it was completely different from the Immortal Tao system. The entire ruins of the Cloud Top Immortal Palace were in the 5 prefectures sea, and Jiang Wang certainly had the right to speak about it. But now, Fan Qingqing said that the 5 Immortals sect indeed had the inheritance of one of the 9 Great Immortals Palaces. Seeing that Jiang Wang did not express his opinion, Fan Qingqing thought that he still had some concerns, or even that he did not understand the value of the Immortals Palace's inheritance. So she said, in the near ancient times, there was a period of time when the 9 Great Immortals Palaces dominated the world, and every Immortals Palace was the top inheritance of that time. The 10,000 Immortals Palace was one of them, and it was said that one person was 10,000 immortals. The era when the 9 Great Immortals Palaces dominated the world was really too long ago. Jiang Wang's battle at the Tianya stage had been widely spread, but there were still very few people who knew that the meteoric rise belonged to the Immortal Tao system. Fan Qingqing had been hiding from place to place, and she could only hear about that battle from hearsay. Therefore, she did not know that Jiang Wang also had the inheritance of the Immortals Palace. Or rather, although she had part of the inheritance, she did not understand the Immortal Tao. She continued to narrate. The founder of the 5 Immortals sect, by chance, obtained a part of the Remnant chapter. It evolved from the Remnant chapter, and the Immortal Tao technique of the 5 Immortals sect came into existence. But this matter, we have strictly kept it a secret for generations. Other than the sect leader and the Great Elder, no one else knows about it. We have lived peacefully for so many years, but I did not expect that this time. She gritted her teeth. I really do not know who they are, and where did they get the information. But other than the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace, what else does our 5 Immortals sect have that they want? Even Jiang Wang, who had the inheritance of the Immortals Palace, did not realize that the 5 Immortals sect was related to the Immortal Dao system. Naturally, other people would not be able to detect it. Then, how did the Doorless Hell know about it? If the Doorless Hell came for the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace, then it should be their own action, and not because they had accepted some mission. The reason was very simple. Who would unreservedly trust an assassin organization? Who would let such a precious thing like the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace be snatched by them? Wouldn't they be afraid of being swallowed by them? Jiang Wang was so familiar with Yin Guan, but he did not dare to completely trust him. Since the Doorless Hell acted on their own, then Jiang Wang immediately thought of the sea prison. Could it be related to the prison guard who escaped from the sea prison? The dead King Bian Sheng, the King of Hell, used to be a high-ranking official of the Fishing Sea Tower and had the opportunity to explore some secrets of the sea. Jiang Wang was still deliberating. On the other side, Fan Qingqing had already raised her hands above her head and in an extremely respectful manner presented an ancient scroll with star patterns. I am willing to give it to you. Chapter 963. This scroll was not authentic. When Jiang Wang saw it for the first time, he had such a judgment. The things passed down from the near ancient times, especially the creation of the Immortal Palace, had their own unique temperament. The sedimentation of the ancient time and the special system of immortal spells that was independent of Taoist spells made it difficult for the creation of the Immortal Palace to imitate. Especially in Jiang Wang's hands, he had a whole group of buildings in the cloud-top Immortal Palace. Although it was just a ruin that was slowly being repaired at the current speed, it would take at least 10,000 years to fully recover with the vitality absorbed by the ethereal palace. But he could see at a glance that this scroll was not authentic, at least not authentic from the immortal palace of the near ancient times. However, it was not a fake. The traces of time on this scroll were real. It had indeed passed through a long time and was passed down to the present day. Jiang Wang speculated that this scroll should be a copy copied by someone at the end of the near ancient times. It was coincidentally obtained by the patriarch of the 5 Immortal sect. It also had an ancient history. Ordinary people might not be so easy to detect the authenticity. Even Fan Qingqing should not know that the inheritance passed down in her sect was not authentic. But for Jiang Wang, who had personally found the ethereal palace and the azure cloud pavilion, he could see the difference at a glance. Although it was not authentic, its value was still immeasurable. The meteoric rise immortal spell had already benefited Jiang Wang a lot. What kind of magnificent scenery was the inheritance of another immortal palace recorded on this scroll? So, should he take it? This did not seem to be a problem. How could he not take the benefits that were sent to him? But in the world, were there any benefits that came to him without any cost? Jiang Wang did not take the scroll, but looked at Fan Qingqing seriously. Elder Fang, what is your request? Fan Qingqing realized that now was not the time to play tricks. Her next answer would directly affect Jiang Wang's decision to directly drive her off the boat or promise to protect her. First of all, I hope to receive your protection. I hope that you can protect me from the offshore islands and go to the state of Qi. Help me solve the problem of my identity so that I can settle down. When she spoke, she looked at Jiang Wang very honestly. The previous little trick had caused her to lose points. After realizing that Jiang Wang was definitely not easy to fool, she now needed to let Jiang Wang see her sincerity. Jiang Wang used his eyes to tell her to continue. Escorting Fan Qingqing to the state of Qi was not a difficult task. Jiang Wang couldn't be safer in his current state. Ocean Fishing Tower wouldn't provoke him right now. He was one of their own on Jiueming Island, and he was at the height of his fame. He had also managed his relationship with Mog quite well. It could be said that during this period of time, as long as he didn't cause any trouble in the offshore islands, there wouldn't be any trouble. Most importantly, the person who was chasing after Fan Qingqing was Yin Guan. Just like how the Jiaohai Tower wouldn't provoke Jiang Wang in the short term, Yin Guan and his no door to hell wouldn't dare approach Jiang Wang either, because no one knew if Jiang Mengxiong was watching him right now. The no door to hell had been running around for a long time. If the military god of the Qi accidentally saw them, it would be the right time to exterminate them. It was just a matter of moving his fingers. Therefore, Fan Qingqing hiding beside Jiang Wang was a very wise choice. Even if Yingguan was extremely daring and the military god didn't continue to pay attention to Jiang Wang, they could still talk. Jiang Wang thought that he could still talk to Yingguan. If he handed over the scroll to save Fan Qingqing's life, Yingguan wouldn't mind. Yingguan would never treat Fan Qingqing, a mediocre person who had exhausted her talent, as a threat. As for helping Fan Qingqing settle down in Qi, he didn't even need to ask his friend for help. She was a 4th grade blue medal holder, and she could just ask the patrol office for help. Fan Qingqing continued, "Secondly, I want to stay by your side and follow you. For a peerless Tianjiao like you, even if you don't need to build a force, you definitely need someone to help you deal with chores. In the future, your fiefdom and various businesses will need someone to help you take care of them. The foundation of Wuxian sect has been destroyed. From now on, I'm a person without roots. I want to have a foothold under your protection. Didn't you say earlier that you like the Zhengxing Palace? I know how to build it. I can help you build one." She had wanted to sell the Zhengxing Palace at a high price and take advantage of Jiang Wang. Now, she used it as a bargaining chip, only asking for a chance to follow him. She understood very clearly. When the Ocean Merit list was released, Jiang Wang was ranked first on the secondary list. After the battle at Tianya Stage, he defeated the Tianjiao of Sea Fishing Tower and suppressed his peers. After this battle, Jiang Wang had already soared to the sky, and no one could stop him. In 3 to 5 years, or at most 8 to 10 years, there would definitely be a place for Jiang Wang in Qi. It was a place with a foundation, weight, and the ability to compete with other families. After cultivating for so many years, she knew very well that the rise or fall of a Tianjiao often represented the rise or fall of a force. Now that she had joined Jiang Wang's side, she was starting from nothing. Then, when he soared through the 9 heavens, she might be able to rise with the wind. Of course, this decision was made after Jiang Wang exposed her tricks and didn't let her use him for nothing. If Jiang Wang was fooled by her with a few words and helped her escape from the coastal waters, then she would take the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace and go far away. Other than talent and strength, there was no lack of intelligence and means. This was the reason why Fan Qingqing decided to follow him. Jiang Wang didn't comment, and only asked, "Is there anything else?" Fan Qingqing held up the scroll and said humbly, "In addition, if you can research something from this scroll in the future, I hope to receive your guidance." Fan Qingqing's words indicated that the 5 Immortals sect's research on this scroll was not deep, and the progress was slow for so many years. This was probably the reason why the 5 Immortals sect had part of the inheritance, but no one from the sect master to the elders really knew the celestial arts. But the most important thing was, if she offered this inheritance, those who were chasing her would naturally change their target. And Jiang Wang's reputation of keeping his promises was well known. If she left a secret for herself, she would still have the opportunity to learn new celestial arts in the future. And she didn't have to be on tenterhooks anymore. Perhaps it was not that she didn't recognize the doorless hell. She was just afraid of scaring Jiang Wang away, so she deliberately said that she didn't know. Anyway, she had truthfully described the clues she saw. Whether Jiang Wang knew or not was Jiang Wang's own business. As long as she insisted that she didn't know, no one could prove the truth on this point. Jiang Wang smiled faintly. "You are very confident in me." She didn't know whether it was confidence in studying the celestial arts or confidence in resisting the doorless hell. Fan Qingqing's heart jumped, but her expression became more respectful. "If you don't want to take me in, just send me to Qi. This inheritance is still yours." She was indeed a very resourceful person, and she had been an elder of the sect for many years, so she was not lacking in ability. So far, Jiang Wang really didn't have such a person under his command. Of course, this was also related to the fact that he didn't focus on the management of his forces. Jiang Wang looked at the woman for a while. Then, he reached out his hand and took the scroll with the star pattern on it, declaring his attitude. Fan Qingqing's face lit up, and she bowed. Greetings, Lord. From now on, she was Jiang Wang's retainer. Jiang Wang reached out and helped her up and said in a wide voice, My foundation is very shallow, and maybe there is nothing for you to do. But you can rest assured that I will not let down those who don't let me down. Although it was just a simple sentence, and although the person in front of her was such a young man. But Fan Qingqing's whole body suddenly relaxed, and she felt a great sense of security. At this time, who didn't know about the offshore islands? This young man valued promises the most. As long as he promised, he would definitely do it. Jiang Qingyang's words were worth 1,000 words. Chapter 964. Li Longchuan had no intention of asking about the sudden appearance of an acquaintance of Jiang Wang's in the cabin, who seemed to be keeping secrets. However, Jiang Wang still walked behind him and said, Brother Li, I have some matters to attend to and can't go to Ice Phoenix Island. You'll have to return this heavy ice ring on my behalf. Please apologize to your sister for me. When we reach Linzi, I'll pay you a visit and apologize. At this time, Li Longchuan was standing at the bow of the ship, facing the vast blue sea. His clothes fluttered in the wind. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was like a jade tree. When he heard the voice, he turned around and looked at Jiang Wang. The jade belt on his forehead added a hint of gentleness to his heroic temperament. But when he spoke, the spirit of a military family naturally erupted. Is there trouble with this person? He said with a smile. As long as she's not being chased by Sea Fishing Tower or Mog Valley, there's no problem hiding on Ice Phoenix Island. With his understanding of Jiang Wang, this was the only possibility. That woman had come with trouble, and Jiang Wang didn't want to drag his friend down. Jiang Wang smiled. It's a private matter. If Li Longchuan really wanted to investigate something, there weren't many people who could escape his eyes. Therefore, Jiang Wang didn't deny that Fan Qingqing was in trouble. He only used a light tone to gloss over it. If Ice Phoenix Island and the Gateless Hell were to be implicated, he wouldn't be able to get past himself. Li Longchuan looked at him and said, Since you want to deal with it yourself, and you have the ability to then deal with it yourself. However, he smiled. Ice Phoenix Island scenery is really good. If you're not happy, you can come and take a look. Your friend is there. Jiang Wang smiled brightly. Of course. Then goodbye. Li Longchuan waved his hand as if to send him off. Goodbye. Jiang Wang smiled even brighter. I've requisitioned the ship. Brotherly, fly slowly on your way back and enjoy the scenery. Li Longchuan was a little speechless, but after being with Su Xiangqian for so long, he was quite used to the feeling of being rubbed off. He stood at the bow of the ship and shouted, Let's go, Li Yin. The boat is his now. Hey! Jiang Wang stopped him again. The boatman can use it too. Li Longchuan was stunned for a moment and said, When you smile, you should really squint your eyes. Of course, Jiang Wang understood his teasing. This made him more like Cheng Gung Sheng. She also smiled back. While you're at it, pull up your hair and pin it higher. I'm afraid you're more used to it. This group of friends had always had a question in private. When Su Xiangqian and Cheng Gung Sheng were alone together, who would be at a disadvantage and who would gain the advantage? Unfortunately, there seemed to be no answer to this question because thieves like Su Xiangqian and Cheng Gung Sheng knew who was the hardest bone to chew. They basically never spent time alone with each other, nor did they have any ideas about each other. It was a bit like kings don't meet kings. Li Longchuan laughed loudly, took the ice ring from Jiang Wang's hand, and strode away on the waves. The boatman, Li Yin, was originally a soldier, so he obeyed orders without question. Li Longchuan told him to leave and stay, so he stayed. He didn't say anything unnecessary. Although his expression was clearly blank, he couldn't understand why he and the boat were suddenly requisitioned. Jiang Wang didn't want to ask for trouble, nor did he want to give the newly obtained 10,000 Immortals Palace inheritance to the Gateless Hell, so he decided to return to Qi and didn't stay overseas. After all, the longer he stayed, the greater the risk. He couldn't directly bring Fan ching across the sea. In that case, it would be hard for the gateless hell not to notice them. Therefore, Jiang Wang needed a boat and a boatman to cover Fan Qingqing's tracks. He meditated in the cabin in the name of cultivation. Those who noticed him would probably understand why he kept a low profile. The dragon bone boat of the fishing sea tower was almost a common boat in the coastal waters. The one used by Ice Phoenix Island was no exception. Of course, it had some modifications, but its appearance didn't change much. Since then, they changed the route. Along the way, any problems they encountered were handled by the boatman, Li Yin. Jiang Wang, on the other hand, stayed in the cabin and peacefully studied the 10,000 Immortals' Palace inheritance. It was a fortunate thing to explore the secrets of cultivation on a boat in the blue sea. This scroll, when opened, was a picture called 10,000 Immortals Greet. It was really impressive. At the beginning of the left side, there was a paragraph written in a font that was very close to the Taoist language, but definitely not Jingwen. Jiang Wang used his heart to sense it and illuminated it with the light of his divine ability. Only then could he see the meaning from the perspective of the Taoist language. However, he could only understand about 80% of it. The remaining 20% was guessing, associating, and speculating. And this paragraph stunned him on the spot. All things have spirit. Man is the spirit of all things. With spirit in the eyes, one can become an immortal. With spirit in the ears, one can become an immortal. With spirit in the nose, spirit in the mouth. Liver, gallbladder, spleen, hair, blood, and bones all have spirit. They can all become immortals. From top to bottom, veins, muscles, and bones all belong to me. Man is the universe. Man is the universe. Man is the immortal of the 10,000 immortals. What a mysterious and magnificent idea this was. From top to bottom, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, veins, muscles, liver, gallbladder, spleen, hair, blood, and bones, all of them were cultivated to become immortals. This was a road that seemed to have no end. However, one could completely imagine how powerful the cultivator who could succeed in the end would be. Man is the universe. Man is the universe. Man is the immortal of the 10,000 immortals. Man is space. Man is time. Man is the immortal who gathered the 10,000 immortals. If the ruins of the Cloud-Top Immortal Palace allowed Jiang Wang to imagine the glory of the 9 great immortal palaces and how majestic and grand the Cloud-Top Immortal Palace was when it was at its peak, then this scroll that represented the inheritance of the 10,000 Immortal Palace made Jiang Wang understand why the 9 great immortal palaces could have such a glorious era and how they could dominate the world. Of the inheritance of the Cloud-Top Immortal Palace, Jiang Wang had only mastered one celestial technique, meteoric rise. Although he was able to use it more freely, he was still confused about the entire cultivation system. However, the idea shown in this scroll, 10,000 Immortals Greet, was enough to let Jiang Wang peek into the glory of that era. From what Jiang Wang felt now, those who had created the celestial technique system could be said to be pioneers in cultivation, great explorers, and a historical monument. Why would the 9 great immortal palaces be destroyed in the end? His mind sank into the 5-mansion sea, and his spirit manifested in the cloud pavilion. Jiang Wang summoned Baiyun Child and asked directly, "Do you know about the 10,000 Immortal Palace?" Baiyun Child blinked his round eyes with a blank look on his face. What else does this unlucky kid know other than flattering? Sometimes, he can't even flatter properly. The 10,000 Immortal Palace is so bold, the immortal of the 10,000 immortals. Where does our Cloud-Top Immortal Palace's confidence come from? How can we be compared with them in the late ancient era? It's useless to ask. Jiang Wang sighed in his heart. He condensed a sword manual with his spirit and handed it to Baiyun Child. This is the East Rising Purple Qi Sword Manual. Practice it well. I'll test you later. Baiyun Child naturally couldn't refuse the Immortal Master's request. He took the sword manual and was about to ask the reason, but the Immortal Master had already left. "I'm just a kid. I just want to eat, drink, and sleep every day. Why do you suddenly want me to practice swordsmanship? Are you going to send me out to fight in the future? In the tall and majestic cloud pavilion, Bayun Child became more and more confused as he thought. His chubby face slowly collapsed. He didn't care about his life or death. As long as the cloud-top immortal palace existed, he would exist. But it was painful. The white and chubby little guy was shivering here. But the immortal master's reason was actually very simple. The test was to pass, and if you pass, you'll be beaten. Jiang Wang was just looking for a justifiable reason to beat up a kid. When I think about the plot, my head explodes. When I think about the magical power, my head explodes. When I think about the cultivation system, the structure of the world. In short, my head keeps exploding. In the midst of the pain, I thought that was the process of the birth of the universe. Chapter 9:65. Jiang Wang finally understood what it meant when the myriad immortal palace claimed that one person is tens of thousands of immortals. After cultivating the liver, gallbladder, spleen, hair, blood, bones, everything in the body into an immortal, every part of the body would be an immortal. It was not an exaggeration to say that one person was tens of thousands of immortals. The five immortals sect used appearance, sound, smell, taste, and touch as the five immortals. Jiang Wang had thought it was very special back then. Now, it seemed that it was born from this. The opening text on the left took up 1/6 of the entire painting. Apart from the text, the main body of the painting was a person. A bald, naked person with no female characteristics on the upper body and no male characteristics on the lower body. The person's gender was completely blurred. This person's depiction was very detailed. It could be said that the slightest detail could be seen. The hair, skin, and flesh were all very clear. Ordinary eyes, nose, and mouth. Apart from gender, this was a very normal person. It was like a man, but also like a woman. However, even though this person's depiction was so clear, once you close your eyes, you still could not remember what this person looked like. Because it was too normal. It was like any person you would meet in your life. It could be replaced by anyone, and it could also be replaced by anyone. The tens of thousands of immortals cultivated by the myriad immortal palace was such an image. Around this person, there were countless small circles of light. Looking carefully with rapt attention and touching with the power of the soul, one would discover that in every circle of light, there was a faint immortal shadow, and all of them were worshipping this person whose gender was blurred. Tens of thousands of immortals. This was too great. Jiang Wang kept sighing in his heart. The scene of tens of thousands of immortals worshipping was reflected in the painting, and it was so shocking. If it could become a reality, how terrifying would that be? Every part of the body would become an immortal, and these tens of thousands of immortals would be under one's command, and all of them would contribute to one's strength. Jiang Wang was very sure that the tens of thousands of immortals worshipping painting in his hand was a copy. Due to the strength of the copy, many pictures and even the charm of the words could not be accurately conveyed. First were the words at the beginning. Because they were similar to Tao characters, Jiang Wang was able to sense their meaning under the illumination of the divine light and his divine sense, which was far stronger than that of cultivators of the same level. However, he couldn't be sure that what he had experienced was the entire true meaning. That replicator obviously didn't have the ability to write such words. He was just copying the strokes, which happened to lack the most important true meaning of the Tao text. The true Taoist text was one where regardless of whether one was literate, wise, or foolish, one would be able to understand the meaning as soon as one saw the words. In Jiang Wang's view, their greatest value was that they opened up the boundaries of his imagination, allowing him to peek into the great cultivation landscape of 10,000 immortals. The essence of the scroll should be the 10,000 immortals. If Jiang Wang's guess was correct, each immortal shadow on the scroll represented a cultivation method, a method to cultivate a certain part of the body into an immortal. However, no matter how Jiang Wang sensed it, those immortal shadows only had faint traces of divine charm and didn't have any real feedback. Only the immortal shadows that corresponded to the eyes, ears, mouth, and nose had a stronger divine charm. It was likely that the replicator had only cultivated these for secret techniques. From this point of view, that replicator might have been the successor of the 10,000 Immortals Palace. He could imagine that when the 10,000 Immortals Palace was destroyed, that person had hurriedly replicated the sect's inheritance treasure and then fled. There should be more than one replicator, and there should be more than one copy of the scroll. After a long time, one of the copies fell into Jiang Wang's hands. This could be imagined. However, it was hard to imagine who could destroy the 10,000 Immortals Palace, which was able to create the cultivation wonder of 10,000 immortals. Jiang Wang subconsciously thought of the two bloody words that had worn away the shackles, Taoist thief. Putting aside the distracting thoughts, he returned to the scroll itself. The divine charm of the four immortal shadows was indeed stronger, but he couldn't accurately sense the information that the replicator wanted to leave behind. Perhaps that replicator's cultivation was far from perfect and couldn't truly recreate the inheritance, or perhaps it gradually dissipated over a long time. In short, by experiencing these four immortal shadows, he could get some fragments of inspiration, but he couldn't get the specific cultivation method. It was no wonder that the Five Immortals sect had only created a set of nondescript Taoist techniques after inheriting this scroll for so long. The so-called shape, sound, smell, taste, and touch. The touch of the Five Immortals were probably gathered by the ancestors of the Five Immortals sect to fit the five senses system, and also to separate themselves from the 10,000 Immortals sect to avoid disaster. Jiang Wang held the scroll of the 10,000 Immortals Palace and was speechless for a while. Was it a treasure? Of course it was. Just from its opening up the boundary of cultivation, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was priceless. The four immortal shadows with strong divine charm were also very valuable. If he could understand it thoroughly, he might be able to recreate the four cultivation methods. The problem was, how could he understand it thoroughly? When could he do it? Those inspirations were too fragmented. The Five Immortals sect had been passed down for so many years and passed down from generation to generation, but they still couldn't understand it. Although Jiang Wang was very confident in himself, he didn't think that he could rely on himself to make up for the achievements of several generations. To put it bluntly, the scroll of the 10,000 Immortals Palace in his hand was just for him to broaden his horizons. There wasn't a single cultivation method that could be used. Even if there was, it was just a drawing that was hung in a place unknown. He wanted to get it, but he couldn't see it. Moreover, it was a replica. It was definitely not worth it to fight with the no door of hell for such a scroll of the 10,000 Immortals Palace. However, Jiang Wang didn't intend to go back on his word. Firstly, if he handled it well, he might not have to fight with the no door of hell. Secondly, not everything in this world could be measured by whether it was worth it or not. The sect masters and elders of the Five Immortals sect had stood out to support him on the Tianya stage. Although he and Cheng Gongsheng had agreed to protect the Five Immortals sect under the pressure of the Fishing Sea Tower, it had nothing to do with other grudges against the Five Immortals sect. However, it was already a fact that the Five Immortals sect had reached this stage of destruction. Jiang Wang sighed softly and slowly rolled up the painting. Fan Qingqing, who had been observing his expression for a long time, suddenly asked, "Master, can you understand this painting?" She was also an inner palace disciple, but she couldn't remove the divine power. The power of her divine soul was also very ordinary. She had always been confused when she looked at this painting. Although she was on a treasure mountain, she didn't know the true face of the treasure mountain. "It's the 10,000 Immortals Palace," Jiang Wang said casually. "Although it's a replica, it's still very valuable." Fan Qingqing once again felt a deep sense of reverence. It was as if she was looking up at a mountain. As expected of Tianjiao, a big country, her own Five Immortals sect had studied it for several generations before someone suggested that this painting might not be authentic. However, they couldn't confirm it. Now, Jiang Wang had actually confirmed it with a few glances. How knowledgeable were these top-notch people in Tianjiao? With a heart full of reverence, Fan Qingqing took out a gorgeous jade booklet from the storage box and handed it to Jiang Wang. This is a little bit of our ancestral masters' understanding. Generations of sect masters and elders have summarized it. Perhaps it can give you some inspiration. It was almost impossible for an inner palace disciple like her, who had experienced many hardships, to trust someone without reservation. Perhaps there was one or a few people like that, but they had already disappeared with the Five Immortals sect. If Jiang Wang could not understand the myriad immortals pilgrimage painting, then she might never have taken out this so-called understanding of the painting. Her sincerity was reflected little by little with the value that Jiang Wang had shown. Jiang Wang didn't feel offended. He could completely understand her caution. Fan Qingqing was now a lone bird in the cold winter. If she wasn't careful, she wouldn't be able to survive for long. He took the jade booklet and said sincerely, "Thank you." Chapter 966. The jade booklet that Fan Qingqing gave him basically recorded the understanding of the founding master of the Five Immortals sect on the 10,000 Immortals pilgrimage painting. First was the opening paragraph. The founding master of the Five Immortals sect had copied it all in the Sioux language. The current Qi language had absorbed the Sioux language. Therefore, it was not difficult for Jiang Wang to read it. The Sioux language itself was also in line with the history of when the Sioux country was destroyed. 2,300 people went to the sea in a day, and the sects on the sea were established. This proved that this was indeed the work of the founding master of the Five Immortals sect. After careful comparison, Jiang Wang realized that the founding master of the Five Immortals sect and his understanding of this paragraph of text were roughly the same. There are only two differences. The first was the opening sentence, "All things of spirit, and man is the spirit of all things." The founding master of the Five Immortals sect wrote, "Man is the spirit of all things." One spirit was this spirit, and the other was the origin. The former had the intention of showing off the group, and was biased towards the best. The latter had the taste of the root of all things, and was biased towards the first. It was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. Jiang Wang was very confident in his judgment, but he also felt that the founding master of the Five Immortals sect's judgment was very reasonable. Other than that, the second difference was the sentence, "From top to bottom, the veins and muscles of the whole body are all for the sect." The founding master of the Five Immortals sect wrote, "All for the sect." One was Ben, and the other was I. These two words were very similar, but there were some differences. The former emphasized the core, and the latter emphasized the self. As the saying went, stones from other mountains can be used to improve jade. From the understanding of the founding master of the Five Immortals sect, Jiang Wang did indeed have some new gains. Under the collision of inspiration, more brilliance was revealed. He had a better understanding of the 10,000 Immortals pilgrimage painting. Reading the experience of the sect masters and elders of the Five Immortals sect was, in essence, a kind of verification of cultivation. The most valuable part of this jade booklet was about the four most charming immortal phantoms on the 10,000 Immortals pilgrimage painting. The four immortal phantoms' earlier charm was definitely more complete. This was because the jade booklet recorded a lot of thinking about the four immortal phantoms. Compared to the other immortal phantoms that no one cared about, they obviously had more room to think. Among them, the most prominent one was the immortal phantom that represented the position of the ear. Because there were more records, more inspirations, and more detailed discussions, they had even organized the most primitive cultivation methods. Jiang Wang read it carefully and found that this book was indeed thought-provoking. It was very mysterious and had the aura of a secret book of the Immortal Palace. It should have been directly perceived by the founding master of the Five Immortal sect from the Immortal Shadow. At most, it was due to his personal knowledge and cultivation that he had overlooked a little. Essentially, it was still a kind of inheritance. It was a high-quality cultivation manual. But there was one problem that couldn't be solved, and it was also the biggest problem: the technique interface. The core difference between the Immortal Technique system and other Tao techniques lay in the technique interface. This Immortal Rumor Codex was indeed profound, but it did not mention anything about the technique used to cultivate this codex or how to search for it. Perhaps it wasn't a problem in the late antiquity era, but in the modern era, the technique itself was the biggest barrier before immortal techniques. If Jiang Wang did not obtain the Azure Cloud Pavilion and did not have the endless good fortune Azure Cloud, even if he studied the one step to Azure Cloud thoroughly, he would not be able to use it freely. From the records in the Jade Book, the founding master of the Five Immortal sect also discovered that this immortal rumor codex was missing something important. He did not know what it was, but to ensure confidentiality, he did not dare to investigate the relevant history of the Immortal Palace. But he was also a genius. Although he did not know that the technique interface was missing from the Immortal Rumor Codex and did not know what the technique interface was, he researched a method to replace the technique interface. This was the origin of the Tao techniques of the Five Immortal sect. The second half of the Jade Book recorded the general outline of the Tao techniques of the Five Immortal sect. It was called the Five Immortals Dream Command. It was created by the founding master of the Five Immortal sect and was perfected by generations of sect leaders and elders. This Jade Book recorded the thoughts of generations of sect leaders and elders of the Five Immortal sect. The Tao technique system of the Five Immortal sect was the process of them materializing their thoughts into reality. The Dream Command was the method to replace the technique interface. They used the Dream Command as the technique interface and the Immortal Rumor Codex as the foundation to create the cultivation method of the Five Immortals. Jiang Wang did not think much of it at first. He felt that the Tao techniques of the Five Immortal sect were only a little unique. Now that he carefully analyzed it, he could not help but feel ashamed of his arrogance. What was the concept of the technique interface? It was not an exaggeration to say that it was almost equivalent to the foundation of the immortal technique system. But the Five Immortal sect, a small and unknown sect, had actually researched a method to replace the technique interface. Although this method of replacement had many flaws and was not perfect enough, it made the level of Immortal Rumor Codex of the Immortal Rumor Codex become relatively mediocre. But it was already a pioneering work of genius. Looking at the entire offshore islands, the Five Immortal sect of the Summer Island was really insignificant. Not many strong people would be interested in it. Those young people in Tianjiao, famous sects, big sects, strong countries, immortals as their teachers, gods as their guides. Looking at the world, a sect with the highest combat power of the outer building realm was nothing. But even such an insignificant sect was condensed of struggle, wisdom, and blood and tears. It also had its own winding and glorious history. If it had not been destroyed, with this dreamy command of the Five Immortals that had been continuously repaired and perfected over the generations, it might have been possible for it to rise in the future by riding on the warship of Qi. But it was meaningless to talk about this now. The Five Immortal sect had been completely wiped out. Those magnificent struggles that belonged to each individual had come to an abrupt end. And the history of the Five Immortal sect was now in the hands of Jiang Wang. Amazing! After an unknown period of time, Jiang Wang closed the Jade Book and could not help but sigh. Really amazing. This dreamy command of the Five Immortals was definitely not a top-notch technique. Other than the voice part, the other four parts seriously dragged it down. As for the voice part itself, it was completely incomparable to the Immortal Rumor Codex. The replacement technique, the Dreamy Command, was far inferior to the Immortal Rumor Codex of the 10,000 Immortals Palace. This was a matter of course. After all, the latter was the cultivation wisdom that had once suppressed an era. But the significance of the Dreamy Command was that it opened up another possibility of inheriting immortal techniques. If one day, the Dreamy Command could completely replace the effect of the Codex, it would mean that the entire immortal technique system would be integrated into the Taoist technique system. This was almost impossible, but to be able to come up with such an idea and take a small step forward was in itself a kind of greatness. Therefore, Jiang Wang sighed again and again. He really felt that it was amazing. Fan Qingqing said respectfully, "To be able to receive such praise from you, I am honored as well. Guard me. I will try to cultivate," Jiang Wang directly ordered. From Jiang Wang's current perspective, the four parts of form, smell, taste, and touch were too crude. There was no need to learn them. However, he could learn the voice part well. If he could find the codex, this would be a mortal rumor codex. If he could not, the subtlety of the voice part was far above the other four parts. At this moment, he did not need to guard her, but this was a sign of closeness and acceptance. Fan Qingqing obviously understood. She lowered her head. "Please rest assured, my lord." Chapter 967. The core of the five immortals' dreamy command was the dreamy command. The core of the dreamy command was the dream. The essence of cultivation was to explore the non-existent thing required by the immortal rumor code. The cultivator visualized the various characteristics in the dream and then used the secret technique to realize them. Of course, the actual effect was not as good as what if. The founder of the Five Immortals sect did not know that the key missing part of the immortal rumor code was the technique, but she concluded that the missing part of the immortal rumor code was the command. The command was the core of the secret technique, the key to all Tao techniques. When he started to practice the voice part of the Five Immortals' dreamy command, Jiang Wang was able to confirm that the greatest value of the Five Immortals sect was not the remnant inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace, but the dreamy command. This secret technique was to visualize the dream and then realize it. It was simply endless imagination. The legendary divine celerity was where the heart's thoughts are, the feet will be there. It explored the power of the heart, the mighty power that was close to making fantasy come true. The dreamy command was similar to it. Of course, if the divine celerity was compared to a high mountain, the dreamy command of the Five Immortals sect was only at the foot of the mountain. However, if it was purely based on the imagination of the future, the limit of the divine celerity was so near yet so far. The limit of the dreamy command depended on the ability of the user. Of course, the greater the imagination, the greater the secret technique. Unrealistic imaginations were nothing more than bubbles and illusions. There were so many wild and absurd delusions in the history of cultivation. How many of them were taken seriously? Just like the Five Immortals' dreamy command that had been passed down for so many years, the Five Immortals sect was still not worth mentioning, and the dreamy command was still unknown. The divine celerity was the supreme supernatural power of Buddhism. Compared to the directness of the divine celerity, the dreamy command also passed through the dream realm once. This was indeed a roundabout choice, but it showed the genius of the founder of the Five Immortals sect. She used her creative genius to cross the natural mode of cultivation and knowledge. It was really admirable. The more Jiang Wang practiced, the more he was moved. There were so many geniuses in this world, but only a few could achieve something in the end. A genius, like the founder of the Five Immortals sect, was unknown. The foundation that he had built with his own hands was destroyed overnight. If Fan Qingqing hadn't escaped, no one in the world would have known about it. The romantic will always be blown away by the wind and rain. The more experience one had, the more reverence one needed to know. The process of cultivating the dreamlike token was not easy. However, compared to the cultivation process of the Five Immortal Sect seniors recorded in the Jade Book, it was much simpler and much easier. Dream soul, always depended on each other. With Jiang Wang's soul power, which far exceeded that of cultivators of the same level, entering a dream was a piece of cake, and constructing a dreamland was also not a difficult task. It was at the step of turning dreamlike into order that he needed to think carefully. The process was very complicated. The dreamlike token used a total of 372 seals before it was able to conjure a portion of the characteristics of the visualized dream. Only then could the dreamy order get slightly closer to the Shu Jia. This was the result after the revision and reduction of the Five Immortals sect masters and elders. The highest number of seals was 417. It could be said that the dreamlike token could not be used in battle at all. It was too complicated and its power was extremely weak. However, it was not a problem to use it in cultivation. It could be used as a substitute for the shu jie to complete the cultivation of the celestial technique. If Jiang Wang obtained more celestial techniques from the cloud-top immortal palace in the future, but did not have any other shu jie, then the dreamlike token might be a choice. Compared to the 5 immortal sect masters, Jiang Wang had a huge advantage. That was, he truly mastered the celestial technique and had an endless supply of shu jie. He could better understand the immortal knowledge law. Moreover, he could try to use the dreamlike token to replace the virtuous fortune clear sky method to objectively explore the difference between the dreamlike token and the real shu jie. From there, he could make the dreamlike token more complete. No matter how talented the 5 immortal sect's founder was, her understanding of the shu jie only existed in her imagination. She only knew that something was needed, but she did not know what it was exactly. It had nothing to do with other things, but it was a natural gap in knowledge. The Confucian school said that reading 10,000 books was like traveling 10,000 miles. It was also to accumulate knowledge and experience to go further on the path of cultivation. With the existence of the cloud-top immortal palace, Jiang Wang was confident that he could improve on the dreamlike token's replacement of the shu jie. Of course, if he used the Dao development platform to deduce and put in the information of the dreamlike token in one step to clear sky, the final product would definitely be more perfect. The process would also be more convenient. As long as he had enough merit, he could infinitely approach the limit of the stage. However, Jiang Wang did not intend to deduce in the great illusionary land. The dreamlike token was so unique, it was not an ordinary item that could be seen everywhere. The great illusionary land was so mysterious, and it was very obvious that there was a need for a cultivation technique. In the past, he did not have a choice, but now he did. Before he knew the details, he did not intend to share his unique power with the person or power behind the great illusionary land. This kind of caution had always been consistent. Even his human Dao sword style had never been contributed to the Dao development platform. The 5 senses of a cultivator were naturally far superior to that of an ordinary person. However, that was the natural refinement of Dao energy and the natural improvement of the physical body. There were also various kinds of secret techniques and various targeted strengthening. There was no lack of world-famous ocular techniques, which were often invisible. Some people could distinguish thousands of smells from each other with just a light sniff. However, the main body of all these related secret techniques was the cultivator themselves. A person used their ears and eyes and these parts of the body as tools to perform all kinds of functions and release all kinds of Dao techniques. They were organs. The use of tools was the same. The 5 Immortals' dreamlike token, or the Immortal Audio Dictionary, was different. The main body was the ears. The ears were not organs. The ears were another person. It was a spirit that was one with you, completely subservient to you, but also independent. Treat the ears as a cultivator and ultimately assist in becoming an immortal. This was not something that could be accomplished overnight. One's own cultivation was long, and cultivating the ears to become an immortal was naturally not easy. However, Jiang Wang never lacked the persistence of dripping water to penetrate stone. During cultivation, his sense of time was very vague. He only knew that the boat moved with the water, gradually drifting into the distance. In a haze, he suddenly became alert. Jiang Wang suddenly opened his eyes. "Constable Jiang, don't be nervous," a familiar female voice said. At this time, there were already 2 more people in the cabin. One of them wore a green headscarf, and the hair in front of his forehead was slightly messy. His breathing was slightly chaotic, but his eyes were still clear and full of spirit. If it was not Lin Yuxi, who else could it be? The other person had a head full of silver hair and only 2 symmetrical strands of black hair on both sides of his temples. As for Fan Qingqing, a hand was placed on her shoulder, and she did not dare to move. It seemed that this old man was the one that Fan Qingqing had mentioned, the old man who blocked Ying Guan and the other 2 Yama Kings alone. Jiang Wang was first surprised and then puzzled. Was Li Longchuan's boat a treasure suitable for hiding people? Why were they all going in? They did not even greet the boatman. Chapter 968. Jiang Wang was sitting on the left side of the cabin, and Lin Yuxi was sitting opposite him. Fan Qingqing was curled up in the corner, and the old man was squatting beside her, pressing her shoulder with one hand. Pitter-patter, patter-patter. She didn't know what time it was, but it was raining outside, rapping rapidly and forcefully on the cabin roof. Lin Yuxi's voice was very soft, and it could be said that it was directly transmitted to the ears. Obviously, he did not want to make too much noise. Jiang Wang woke up from his state of cultivation and quickly understood the situation. Although he had been cultivating the Five Immortals' Dream Command, he did not let his guard down completely. If Fan Qingqing made a slight move, he would be able to react. Therefore, it was only a matter of a moment for the old man to control Fan Qingqing. Jiang Wang did not respond to Lin Yuxi immediately, as if he did not care about what was happening in front of him. He listened to the sound of the rain and raised his voice. "Brotherly, it's raining heavily outside. Come in and take shelter." Li Yin's voice sounded from outside. "It's okay, young master. This rain is nothing." For cultivators, there was no need to take shelter from the rain. Jiang Wang only wanted to confirm Li Yin's condition. If something happened to him, he would not know how to explain it to Li Longquan. After getting Li Yin's response, he casually made a hand seal to isolate the sound in the cabin. There was no need to involve Li Yin in what happened next. He had just learned this secret art of silence from his cultivation. He was not as skilled as Fan Qingqing, but it was enough. Releasing his 5 fingers, Jiang Wang leaned back in a very relaxed posture, still ignoring Lin Yuxi, only turning half of his face to look at the frost-haired old man, his eyes emotionless. "She is my subordinate. She has never offended the Qi LV. Please let her go." His voice was very calm, without any threat or anger, but it was very serious. The old man was unexpectedly very kind, and he really let go of her hand, chuckling, "I'm sorry, Arrestor Jiang." Fan Qingqing felt relieved, and subconsciously moved closer to Jiang Wang. She knew too well how terrifying this old man was, so even if he did not do anything to her, she did not dare to move an inch. Now that she saw the old man giving face to Jiang Wang, she realized how important Jiang Wang was in Qi. Tianjiao was a force that suppressed all cultivators in the same realm as the fishing sea tower. Even a divine descent expert wouldn't dare to offend them. Lin Yuxi introduced, "This is Lord Erlu, a former famous arrestor. He's our senior and is highly respected." Jiang Wang didn't greet the famous super arrestor. Of course, he didn't know who Uriel was as he had just joined the Blue Metal. He only turned his head and his gaze landed on Lin Yuxi. He asked bluntly, "Are you still monitoring me?" It wasn't that he was rude or disrespectful to his seniors. Instead, it was these 2 people who had barged into his cabin uninvited and restrained his subordinates. They were the ones who had been rude first. Even a clay figurine had a temper, and Jiang Wang was not a clay figurine. As the leader of Qi's intermansion state, he represented the future of Qi and won glory for Qi. How famous was he after the battle at the Tianyao platform? He made Qi Ting sit still and harvest his reputation. Under Qi's system, a retired divine descent cultivator might not have a higher status than him. This kind of weight referred to their value in Qi's system. He had the right to express his dissatisfaction. He was especially dissatisfied with Lin Yuxi's presence. He remembered that the 2 of them had reached an agreement last time, but this time they had mysteriously turned up without an invitation. Lin Yuxi quickly said, "I'm not monitoring you. I just left a mark earlier. If you mind, I'll take it back now and apologize to you." "No need," Jiang Wang said coldly. "Ninchin, right?" In the next moment, the sun, moon, and stars appeared in the sky above the 5 prefecture seas, and the light of the divine power illuminated the 5 prefecture seas. 3,000 spiritual snakes shot out and swam all over his body in an extremely short time. Found it. On the heel of his left foot, there was a mark that was different from his own. The powerful spiritual power swept over and destroyed it. Lin Yuxi's eyes widened in disbelief. This was the family secret technique she was proud of, and it was the first time it was cracked by a cultivator below divine descent. Moreover, It was in such a reckless and direct way. Spiritual body cleansing. Never forget, like heart attached to Yinshin. This was the unique secret technique of the famous Lin Kuang. It was an exquisite use of spiritual power. Before this, Jiang Wang couldn't do anything about it. However, after returning from the bewildering world, his spiritual power had been strengthened, and he had seen Wang Ao break the Blood King's eye with his own eyes. He had a shallow understanding of the use of this level of power. At the same time, he had opened up the third prefecture, and his cultivation had improved greatly. After the new divine power, Buzhou Wind, was integrated with the killing nail, it had the cruel power to destroy both the body and the soul. Combining all these factors, he almost used his powerful spiritual energy to clean his body and found the dust that Lin Yuxi was associated with. Lin Yuxi was shocked, and Uriel couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He knew how powerful Ninshin's secret technique was. Although Jiang Wang's response just now had successfully eliminated Ninshin, it wasn't very effective. However, it wasn't exquisite at all. If Lin Yuxi was slightly stronger and had reached the inner mansion realm, Jiang Wang might not have been able to detect Ninshin with this method. However, he had to admit that Jiang Wang was still in the inner mansion realm, and he could use spiritual power so extravagantly. This meant that the possibility of him reaching divine descent was far greater than ordinary people. Constable Jiang, I apologize to you again. Uriel didn't say anything, and Lin Yuxi came back to her senses. She lowered her head and said seriously, "There's a reason why I came uninvited this time. Senior Uriel was injured in the process of chasing down villains, and we're now hiding from them. I took the liberty of boarding this time because I wanted to use your reputation as a cover. We're both blue medal holders, so I hope you won't leave us in the lurch." Injured in the process of chasing down villains? Although it wasn't obvious, Lin Yuxi had no need to lie. Remember the battle on the Summer Island, where Yin Guan and the other Yama Kings joined forces in the end? Was he also being hunted down by the gates of hell, just like Fan Xingqing? What? Is this a place that specializes in storing assassination targets from the gates of hell? I'm here to save people. Jiang Wang's voice was cold as he said, I've reminded you, Constable Lin. There's no conflict between us. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I'm also a blue medal holder. You've targeted me time and time again. You've investigated and investigated, and I don't know why you've used the secret technique to deal with criminals on me. Do you think that I'm weak and easily bullied because I've endured so much? Understand. Lin Yuxi put her hands on her knees and bowed her head again in apology. I've disturbed you. She didn't say anything like, I'm leaving, so please let Elder Uriel stay on the ship. That was why his apologetic act of lowering his head was somewhat genuine. Uriel chuckled and said, Let's go, little girl. As he spoke, he reached out to pull Lin Yuxi. You can use this half of the cabin. Before they left the cabin, Jiang Wang stretched out her hand and drew a line in the air, saying softly, on account of the fact that we're both blue medal holders. Chapter 969. Jiang Wang knew that a stubborn person like Lin Yuxi wouldn't think it was wrong for her to investigate Jiang Wang, so she wasn't apologizing for that. She was apologizing for her rudeness of coming uninvited today. This time, she didn't come to investigate the case, but to ask for help. Normal people might not understand this emotion. For what she thought was justice, she wouldn't feel sorry for anything. But outside of justice, her pride would take over. Rashly asking for help and running into a wall would hurt her self-esteem. But what did this have to do with Jiang Wang? The reason he asked her to stay was simple. That sentence of, for the sake of the blue medal, seemed like a cliché, but it was actually his true thoughts. He was Qi Ju, enjoyed Qi Ju's wealth, and was protected by Qi Ju, so he was willing to pay the corresponding price. He wouldn't accept a reward without doing anything, and he wouldn't be willing to sit in his position without doing anything. The identity of a fourth-class blue medal brought him a lot of convenience and hidden protection. It was natural for him to protect his colleagues to the best of his ability. Moreover, Letting one cow go was the same as letting two cows go. Hiding one Fan Qingqing was also hiding. Hiding two more people was also hiding. So in the end, he still nodded. A gentleman wouldn't accept food handed out. Based on Lin Yuxi's nature, she would still leave in a huff. But after looking at the frost-haired old man, she couldn't follow the pride in her heart. This old man took care of her, protected her, and gave her the warmth of a family member. Although he looked normal at the moment, she knew about the injuries on his body. "Thank you, Sir Jiang, for your help," she said. "You also said that we are all blue metal." "But," Jiang Wang said, "I think I should know what kind of danger you are facing. Who is chasing after you?" He glanced at the crowded cabin. After all, we're all in the same boat. This phrase was used in such a situation. They were really in the same boat. Lin Yuxi and Uriel looked at each other and didn't speak immediately. Jiang Wang wasn't in a hurry either. He waited silently. In fact, he should have thought of this long ago. If it had been Cheng Gung Sheng, he would have thought of this immediately. Lin Yuxi clearly suspected that he had some kind of connection with the Gateless Hell. So why would he come to him for help when he was being hunted down by the Gateless Hell? Wasn't this putting himself in danger? Moreover, with their status, how could they be so shameless to look for Jiang Wang? Although the offshore islands were not part of the Qi territory, Juming Island was still one of the three major forces in the sea, second only to Fishing House. If they were to mobilize their forces, what was the Gateless Hell? Qi Shao alone was to destroy the Gateless Hell. Unless it wasn't convenient for Uriel S., there were many complicated reasons for this. Jiang Wang's right. But he's not to be to the Gateless as to this matter was a little messy. He has to think. The Gateless Hell slaughtered the 5 Immortals sect. Uriel and Lin Yuxi suddenly appeared and fought against several Yamakings. Fan Qingqing took the opportunity to escape. After that, Uriel was inexplicably injured and was hunted down by an unknown person. Jiang Wang had originally planned to go to Ice Phoenix Island to thank Li Fengyao in person, but later decided to return to Qi. Just like that, he was inexplicably dragged into these muddy waters. What kind of person would force Uriel, who was a very important person in the blue metal system, into a corner? Unless the other party was also in the Qi system, it wasn't safe for them to go to Juming Island rashly. Jiang Wang suddenly felt a headache coming on. The two uninvited guests were silent for a while. Finally, Uriel spoke up. "Since you're willing to take into account our friendship, I should also show my sincerity." He turned to look at Fan Qingqing. "If I remember correctly, you're from the 5 Immortals sect?" It seemed that he had also noticed Fan Qingqing's escape during the battle on Summer Island. Of course, Jiang Wang shouldn't be the one to answer this question. Fan Qingqing said, "I'm just a lonely person. Fortunately, the master took pity on me and protected me so that I wouldn't have to wander around the world." Another piece of information Jiang Wang captured was that Fan Qingqing had already fallen into Uriel's sight at that time. At the same time, she must have also fallen into Yingguan's sight. Under such circumstances, Fan Qingqing was still able to run so far away and hide outside Neverwinter Island. It couldn't only be explained by Uriel's obstruction. Fan Qingqing must have other secrets. However, everyone had their own secrets. Jiang Wang wouldn't ask all of his subordinates to reveal their secrets. That kind of person wouldn't be able to get any spontaneous loyalty. Uriel looked at Jiang Wang and said, "What I'm going to tell you is an internal matter of the blue metal. It's Qi's secret." He didn't say it explicitly, but his attitude was clear. Fan Qingqing wasn't suitable to listen in. Fan Qingqing didn't move, nor did she intend to leave. She was a very clear-headed person. She knew who she should rely on and whose orders she should listen to. As long as Jiang Wang didn't say anything, she would stay here until the end of time. No matter how terrifying the old man in front of her was, she couldn't be swayed. Jiang Wang was very satisfied with Fan Qingqing's performance. His right hand opened and closed like a blooming flower. Then he said, "You can speak now." The sound around Fan Qingqing was blocked. Fan Qingqing was frightened. It wasn't difficult to isolate the sound in the cabin so that the people outside couldn't hear anything. Anyone who had a rough grasp of the Five Immortals' dream token could do it. But who was she? She was an elder of the Five Immortals sect. She had also cultivated the Five Immortals' dream token and thought that she was quite accomplished. To be able to isolate her hearing, how good did he have to be to master it? Judging from the strength of the isolation, she could easily break it if she used her heart to deal with it. But how long had she cultivated the Five Immortals' dream token? How long had she been in contact with Jiang Wang? Had she really cultivated it for a day? Was this the talent of the top Tianjiao? She didn't know that Jiang Wang's spiritual power was far stronger than cultivators of the same level, and that he had experience in cultivating immortal techniques. In her heart, she greatly exaggerated Jiang Wang's talent and left a mark of admiration. Not to mention that Fan Qingqing was scaring herself. Uriel had already spoken. I accompanied Yu Xie to Yu Xia Island to track down Corner Wang. But we happened to run into the gateless hell who was wantonly slaughtering people in the Five Immortals sect. As a blue metal, it's my duty to arrest evil. Although I've retired, I haven't forgotten my moral integrity. So I attacked in anger. Regarding the gateless hell, Uriel kept mentioning his duty and his moral integrity, as if he was implying something. It was as if he was blaming Jiang Wang for being involved with the gateless hell. But Jiang Wang's expression was calm, and he only had the posture of listening. Uriel continued. Their leader was indeed extraordinary. He had clearly just entered the God's descent, but I couldn't easily suppress him. The two helpers of the Yama Kings also had strange techniques and amazing killing power. I tried to kill one of them, but I didn't succeed. Instead, King Qingguang seized the opportunity to exchange injuries with me. Because Yu Xie was beside me, I couldn't risk my life. After a great battle, I could only let them go. In order to avoid trouble, Yu Xie and I immediately left the scene. But not long after we left Yu Xia Island, we encountered an attack. The wrinkles at the corners of Uriel's eyes were very deep, which might be the reason for his obvious old age. It happened suddenly, and the attacker was very strong. I had just experienced a great battle, so I suffered some losses. I had to use some methods to escape with Yu Xie. The attacker concealed himself well and deliberately avoided using commonly used techniques. But I knew. Uriel looked straight into Jiang Wang's eyes. That person was Tian Huanwen. He couldn't escape from my eyes. Tian Clan of Days, Tian Huanwen. Chi's Top Days Tian Clan of Days had two God's Descent experts. One was the current clan leader, Tian Shili, who was also Tian Omping's father. The other was Tian Huanwen of Tian Shili's uncle's generation. He was the cousin of Tian Huanzhong, who had previously guarded the Seven Stars Valley. As an elder of the Days Tian clan, Tian Huanwen also went out to sea and attacked the retired constable Uriel. Chapter 970. When Jiang Wang looked into Uriel's eyes, he noticed that the old man's eyes were deep and profound. His pupils were as black as ink and seemed to be able to draw people's attention. This person was probably proficient in ocular techniques. Jiang Wang thought and took the initiative to look away. What Uriel had just said was truly shocking. There was more than one shocking point. Whether it was the Tian family of Days or the Blue Metal Elders, they all had the same identity. They were all from Qi. More importantly, to a certain extent, the green plate represented the enforcement of the Qi court. Even though Uriel had retired, his past glory, achievements, and fame made him inextricably linked to the blue metal system. So, why did Tian Huanwen want to kill Uriel? Why did he want to assassinate him? Were the Tian family of Days lunatics? Were they all like Tian Omping? Did they just kill whoever they wanted? Why didn't Uriel ask for help from Jueming Island? Even though he had retired and technically wasn't a super arrester with a blue medal, Jueming Island would go to Jueming Island. But if he went to Juming Island to complain, would Qi Xiao just watch him die? This meant that there was more to this matter than met the eye. At this moment, Jiang Wang was already regretting. He regretted asking. He was doubting himself. Was he really a smart person? He shouldn't have listened to Uriel's words. Cheng Gengsheng was the representative of smart people in his heart. Previously, he thought that if it was Chung Gung Sheng, he would definitely be able to tell that there was someone else who wanted to kill Uriel. But now, he felt that if it was Chung Gung Sheng, he would just pretend that he didn't know anything, because that would be the best choice. It would save him a lot of trouble. He thought that he had seen through Uriel and Lin Yuxi's secrets, but who knew that it wasn't a trap to lure him in? But since he had already heard this much, it was impossible for him to pretend that he didn't know anything. It won't be long before we can return to Qi. Jiang Wang awkwardly changed the topic. Uriel's interest was piqued. You don't seem to be curious about why Tian Huanwen attacked me, Jiang Wang said casually. Who in this world doesn't have any grudges? I also offended the fishing ocean tower a few days ago. It's not personal. Uriel's expression turned serious. It's for justice. I'm checking on them. I've been looking into them. It was obvious that Yuri and Lin Yuxi had only wanted to use the famous Jiang Wang to get through their injuries and escape from being hunted down. But now, when he said the word justice, he said that he had been investigating the Tian family of the Great Zhe. This meant that he wanted to drag Jiang Wang into the game. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that. The Tian family of days was one of the top families in Qi. It would be a big deal to investigate them. How could he say it so casually? He had to express himself to the listeners. Jiang Wang asked himself, in the competition between Uriel and Tian Huanwen, or more specifically, in the competition between the Blue Metal and the Tian family of days, what kind of role could he play? The only thing he could think of was his current reputation. The reputation of being number one in the inner mansion of the coastal islands and number one on the ocean metal list. He didn't know that in Uriel's eyes, he was sure that he would become a top figure in the blue metal system in the future. But whether he knew or not, it didn't affect Jiang Wang's intention to retreat. He didn't want to get involved, so he just nodded, indicating that he understood. Then, there was no then. Uriel waited for a while, but he didn't say anything else. So he sighed, glanced at Fan Qingqing, and asked Jiang Wang, "Do you know why the Five Immortals sect was destroyed?" Jiang Wang's eyes turned cold. Of course, he knew the reason why the Five Immortals sect was destroyed, and he had it in his hands. But if Uriel wanted to use this as a bargaining chip to make a deal, then he was underestimating him. Jiang Wang, you came to me for help, and I promised to help you cover it up. But you turn around and threaten me? If the other party was really so despicable, Jiang Wang might have to leave some clues for Yingguan. But as a famous arrester, he did have the bearing of a famous arrester. Uriel didn't mean to threaten Jiang Wang. He didn't care about Jiang Wang's gains, and he didn't think that it had anything to do with him. He just said, "An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring is a crime. I don't know what the Five Immortal sect has, but the world is like this. Arrester Jiang, you have a famous sword at your waist, and you have amazing skills. You also master a long-lost celestial technique." He asked slowly, "Have you ever thought about why no one has ever thought of robbing you? Is it because those who don't care about their reputation are not as strong as you? Why didn't the disaster of the Five Immortals sect befall you? Is it because you are invincible? Strictly speaking, there were people who thought of robbing him. For example, when Jiang Wuyong coveted the Chernobyl yearning, he was defeated by Chung Gung Sheng. For example, when Hai Zoming coveted the red makeup mirror, he also traveled thousands of miles and was killed in the end. But looking at the world, there were indeed not many people who dared to come over and rob him of his treasures. There were countless villains who were stronger than Jiang Wang. But the reason why he didn't get punished for possessing a jade ring was because of his identity. He was a man from Qingyang Town in Qi, a fourth-grade arrester with a blue medal. Qi was his backing and support. Qi's prestige and status as the overlord of the eastern region protected him. This was an invisible but tangible benefit that was easy to overlook. Of course, Jiang Wang was an outsider. For him to be able to have his current status in Qi and receive this level of protection, he also had to pay a substantial price. It was enough to offset the reward. On the battlefield of Qiyang, he was bathed in blood. The purple robe that the Qi Emperor gave him was the epitome of this exchange. If he didn't have the ability to fight with Ji Shaoqing and even crush him Would Jiang Mingxiong be so free as to preside over fairness for him? The military god went out to sea. Didn't he want to save face? Jiang Wang said frankly, because I am under the Qi Emperor's command. He admitted that Qi protected him. Arrest her, Jiang. You are a person who has a bottom line and responsibilities. But not everyone is like you. Uriel said slowly. There is a problem with the Tian family, a big problem. These years, I have been investigating them. This time, I went out to sea in the name of protecting Yuxi, but in fact, I was investigating my own case. Many people know that Yuxi is my best friend. I followed her out to sea, so no one would suspect me. At this moment, Lin Yuxi bowed his head again. Brother Jiang, the reason why I investigated you previously was to cover for Grandpa Wu and to catch a rat from hell. I apologize to you again. However, I can't deny that I do have my suspicions about you. What about now? Jiang Wang asked. He couldn't wait to skip the topic of the Tian family, so he actively showed his attitude of reconciling with Lin Yuxi. I do. Lin Yuxi was very frank. But I won't investigate you in private again. That was to say, if he received an order from the capital city's inspection office, he would still investigate. However, if he really waited until the day when the capital city's inspection office officially ordered an investigation, it would be meaningless even if he didn't investigate. Jiang Wang was very satisfied. I believe in Arrestor Lin's integrity. He should be satisfied that he changed the topic and resolved the trouble. The sincere ones hide in anonymity, while the false ones climb up the ladder. Not everyone can maintain their integrity. But Uriel calmly changed the topic. Tian Huanwen is a malignant tumor. Jiang Wang, today I communicated with the editor and asked for a bigger recommendation. The editor said that the results were not enough, so I didn't give it to him. I don't know what kind of results are enough to meet the threshold. The average of 1,700 votes is not enough. But this month, I want to fight for the monthly votes. I haven't asked for votes, but last month, we had 3,500 monthly votes, and the highest we reached was 150. This month, I'll make a breakthrough. Let's base it at 2,000 monthly votes. On the basis of 2,000 monthly votes, every 500 monthly votes, I'll add one more chapter. There's no upper limit. That is to say, even if it's the same as last month, I'll add 3 more chapters. Everyone knows my writing speed. I'm using my hair to compete. Without a big recommendation, there's no possibility of the average number of votes skyrocketing. I want to try and see if the top 100 on the monthly votes list is enough. Most of the readers of this book spread spontaneously, so most of them are pirated. I know that the popularity of pirated books is very high. It beats many books with much higher subscriptions. Even so, I've never opened an anti-theft chapter, because there are many readers who switched from pirated books to genuine ones to support me. Because there was once a really penniless reader who encouraged me. I remember their kindness. I feel that as long as they support me in any way, they are my readers. Now, I asked my friends who read pirated books to support my monthly votes this month. I want to make a big recommendation. I've been writing for more than a year, and I've written 3 million words. There's only one big recommendation. I've endured until I can't bear it anymore. I want to make a breakthrough. Either I'll be like Ying Guan and become a god in one battle, or I'll be like Yang Jianda and risk everything to perish with the country. Chapter 971. Lin Yuxi had always believed in a saying, good people can also do bad things. Therefore, no matter how much she recognized Jiang Wang's moral character, it would not reduce Jiang Wang's suspicions. The principle she insisted on was that the investigation itself would not be disturbed by any factors other than evidence. Jiang Wang's actions on this overseas trip had indeed moved her. However, these things could not change the suspicions left by Jiang Wang. However, since she said that she would not investigate in private, it was enough. For Jiang Wang, the matter of suspicion was not a big deal. Certainly, not everyone would think that Jiang Wang was a good person. At least, most of the disciples of the Fishing Sea Tower would have a bad impression of him. Arrogant, domineering, brutal, and vicious might even be a slightly better evaluation. Sometimes one standpoint determined everything. As the saying goes, Your hero is my enemy. Jiang Wang's reason was very simple. It was okay to regard him as an enemy. It was not okay to seek revenge on him. You could hate and hate him as much as you want in your heart. However, if you really wanted to do harm to Jiang Wang in action, then Chang Xiangxi would not recognize you. As for Lin Yuxi, Jiang Wang's attitude was to keep a respectful distance from him. As for Yuri, he had to keep a distance from him. He did not want to know the dangerous secrets of a god-descending stage master. He had already taken on enough responsibilities and suffered enough. Therefore, even if Yuri had said that Tian Huanwen of the Tian family of days was a malignant tumor, as a fourth-class blue metal Jiang Wang, he did not say anything special. He just said, Senior Wu cares about the country and the people. It's admirable. I used to be paid and still remember to share the country's worries. Yuri responded casually and asked, Constable Jiang has a blue medal at your waist. Have you never thought of getting rid of evil for the country? This question was a bit serious. Jiang Wang could no longer talk about it. He finally knew where Lin Yuxi's stubborn character came from. It was exactly the same as the previous Constable Wu. For people and things that interested him, he must get to the bottom of it and would never let it go easily. This was for investigating a case. Perhaps it was an excellent quality. But for those who were targeted, it was inevitably a little unpleasant. Jiang Wang thought for a while and asked directly, Senior Wu, may I ask if I was the one who captured the traitor of the Golden Needle School? Wu Yu? Does that count as getting rid of evil for the country? Uriel looked at him. Are you trying to say that you can do as much as you want with your strength? This old man has heard of a saying, I didn't dare to forget the worries of my country when I was young. Getting rid of evil for the people is where righteousness lies. It was the most loyal thing to do for the country. How could being weak be an excuse? No, Senior, you misunderstand. Jiang Wang shook his head and said, What I mean is that the case of the Golden Needle sect should be recorded as a case file and recorded in the capital's inspection office. Witnesses and material evidence were all present. The case was clear at a glance, and the crime was clear. I took over the case from the patrol inspection office and then went out to sea to arrest the culprit. This is my understanding of the blue metal's responsibility. I think it is to get rid of evil for the country. You said that Tian Huanwen is a malignant tumor and that there is a big problem with the Tian family of days. May I ask, do you have evidence? You said that you have been investigating them. May I ask, is there an official document from the Imperial Court asking the blue metal to investigate the Tian family of days? Speaking up to this point, Jiang Wang spread out his hands. If you don't have any, then I'll take a look at you. If not, how can I say that the Tian family of days is evil? Regardless of who the other party is, do you think that handling a case is based on Senior's words? Of course, there was none of these. If Uriel was investigating the case by imperial decree, how could Tian Huanwen dare to touch him? Even if it was an assassination with a concealed trace, it was still courting death. Once he made a move, it would be a disaster. If Qi Ting really wanted to investigate a top aristocratic family, it would not be as simple as Uriel taking action. The world-famous Withered Yard was destroyed overnight. The influence continued to this day. Until now, all the sects in Qi were suppressed to a certain level, and it would never be possible for another Withered Yard to appear. The famous general of a generation, the present immortal Chongxian Fu Tu, also had to go to the battlefield of the Lost World to prove his sincerity with his death. If Qi Ting really wanted to make a move, there would be no space for Tian Huanwen to ambush overseas. Jiang Wang could easily infer that Uriel's investigation of the Tian family was a spontaneous act. Perhaps his retirement back then was also related to this matter. Then it was even more impossible for him to get involved in this muddy water. Jiang Wang's attitude was very clear. If he was needed to help investigate the Tian family of days, he only needed to take out the official document from the capital's inspection office. An official document to investigate a top aristocratic family must be stamped with the Qi Emperor's seal to be valid. It was impossible for him to take the risk with just a few words in private while holding up the name of righteousness. He did not have that kind of trust in Uriel, nor did he have that kind of friendship with Uriel. Of course, Uriel understood. He was silent for a while, then said, "For Chi, some grievances can be endured, some difficulties can be endured. Indeed, my investigation has no name, no status, and no support from the imperial court. It is only based on my own conscience and personal integrity. If I were to unfortunately die one day, perhaps it would not cause any waves. This time when I was discovered, Tian Huanwen immediately took action. Perhaps it was a wake-up call for me, telling me to turn back. He said slowly, but I will not turn back. I will continue to investigate." These words were indeed admirable. Uriel's persistence was moving. A day's county that almost had the surname Tian, the jurisdiction of a secret realm of the Seven Stars Pavilion, 2 islands overseas, the 2 gods Tian Shili and Tian Huanwen, and the terrifying genius Tian Anping, who was about to reach the end of his 10-year term. Just this part of the Tian family of days on the surface was already terrifying enough. How much courage and determination did it take to investigate a top aristocratic family alone without the support of the imperial court? Ordinary people could not imagine. A cultivator who had broken through the mortal lifespan and had a golden body and jade marrow could live a leisurely life in retirement with full glory, or concentrate on cultivation to reach the peak. However, Uriel chose to do such a difficult thing, risking his life to do it alone. Jiang Wang was not completely unmoved, but he only said, "You said that you were thinking for Qi. If I ask Tian Huanwen what he is doing, he will say that he is thinking for Qi. If I ask him, he will definitely say that he is thinking for Qi. Then, who is truly thinking for the kingdom of Qi?" He shook his head. "I don't know. I won't convict you with words. If one day I can really see the key evidence, and if I'm still a blue medal at that time, then I am willing to fulfill the responsibility of a blue medal. Evil must be punished. Until then, please forgive my silence." Strictly speaking, these words were not gentle nor respectful enough. However, Uriel did not seem to be offended. Instead, he smiled. "That's good. The word rules is the meaning of a blue medal. Many people are not as clear-headed as you. You made a wise choice to lead you into a blue medal." He leaned back and half-leaned on the cabin. "I didn't say anything about the Tian family today. Jiang Wang initially held a blue medal in name only because he followed the path of the Northern Yamen's military officer, Zheng Shi. However, it was Yulong who really entered the blue medal system. Therefore, Uriel said that it was Yulong who led him into a blue medal." Jiang Wang nodded and made a serious promise. "Don't worry, I didn't hear anything either." He was actually very curious about what the Tian family did at sea, why Tian Huanwen went out to sea, and what Uriel found out. Tian Chong and Tian, he only revealed bits and pieces, which had already aroused his curiosity. However, he did not ask anything. He was not powerful enough, and he did not want to court death. Chapter 972. Raindrops were still hitting the roof of the cabin. Of course, hitting the roof and hitting the surface of the sea were 2 completely different sounds. The former was more straightforward, the latter was more dull. At this time, Fan Qingqing had already broken free from the silent state. She looked down and waited obediently. She was motionless, as if she was meditating, but she was not. Judging from the beating of her heart, she was nervous. Yuri was half leaning against the cabin wall, as if he was resting with his eyes closed. One could hear his long and slow breathing. Even if he was injured, he still had the confidence and calmness of an expert. Lin Yuxi, on the other hand, was meditating, but his breathing was disorderly. Clearly he had a lot on his mind. All the sounds were so clear in Jiang Wang's ears. Different sounds, different emotions. Even a 3-year-old child could judge the emotions in his mother's voice. This was not a new world. But because of the cultivation of the voice part of the 5 Immortals' dream command, this world had become more concrete. Jiang Wang could not help but think if he could find a matching technique to recreate the immortal audio manual, and even cultivate the ear immortal. What would this world of sound be like? If he cultivated the eye immortal, it would not be hard to feel the weight of the line of sight, and it might even be possible to shatter it. The inheritance of the 10,000 Immortals Palace was really something to look forward to. What would the original 10,000 Immortals coming to court look like? The rain came and went, the tide rose and fell. Jiang Wang's cultivation passed by peacefully, without any more disturbances. Ice Phoenix Island's Dragonbone boat had some face in the offshore islands. Although it was not as famous as the Stone Gately family in the Qi territory, it was not easy for people to bump into it. And Jiang Wang, who was sitting on the boat, had already spread his name across the islands. Those who knew did not want to provoke him. Those who did not know could not even get past Li Yin. No matter if it was the Doorless Hell or the Tian family, there were no other movements. For days later, in Linhai County, Li Yin drove the Dragonbone boat back alone. Jiang Wang took Fan Qingqing to say goodbye to Yuri and Lin Yuxi. In what ways did the power of a country manifest? One of them was the great sense of security of the people. From the moment they stepped on the ground, everyone who came down from the boat felt relieved. Everyone knew that they were already in the state of Qi. Qi Lu and Qi Fa drew the bottom line for all actions, and no one could ignore it. Needless to say, Fan Qingqing, Uriel, and Lin Yuxi were running for their lives. Jiang Wang, who had been covering for them the whole time, was actually relieved. "I owe you one," Uriel said. Jiang Wang didn't know if he had recovered from his injury. However, his voice became even more steady and powerful, which was a reflection of his confidence. After entering the Qi realm, an experienced blue metal of the gods could use a terrifying amount of power. Lin Yuxi also said, "There will be a reward." Jiang Wang thought for a moment and said, "I do have something that I need your help with." In Qi, the value of a favor from a famous constable, Uriel, could be imagined. Jiang Wang was in such a hurry to fulfill his promise, but he seemed to have underestimated the situation. However, people like Uriel and Lin Yuxi naturally knew that Jiang Wang didn't want to have too much to do with them. "Go ahead," Lin Yuxi said. This was different from when they investigated Jiang Wang. With her pride, of course, she didn't want to pester Jiang Wang. She wanted to be on the same side. Therefore, she wouldn't stop Jiang Wang from returning the favor. "It's like this." Jiang Wang didn't care what they thought. He said directly, "I met a friend in the bewildering world named Chumi. During our breakout, he unfortunately died. He didn't leave any words before he died. I want to know about his past and what I can do." He was sent to the bewildering world because of his crime. His eyes were long and narrow, and he was born in the Liangshan Lu. Just know his name. Lin Yuxi said directly, "I'll give you the information in 3 days." It wouldn't be difficult for Jiang Wang to investigate this matter himself. It was nothing more than a matter of greeting Zheng Shangming. For Lin Yuxi, it was even simpler. The simpler the matter, the more obvious the intention to keep a distance from him. Therefore, Lin Yuxi's response was also very short. "Then I'll have to trouble you," Jiang Wang said politely. "Just send it to Cheng Gengsheng's Mount Xia Villa." Lin Yuxi didn't ask where Jiang Wang was staying. Of course, he was confident that he could find Jiang Wang in 3 days, no matter where Jiang Wang was at that time. He didn't mean anything else. And Jiang Wang directly told him the address because he didn't want Lin Yuxi to find him. It was as if he was avoiding the god of pestilence. Matters were matters, and relationships were relationships. He could clearly distinguish between them. Lin Yuxi looked at him deeply and only said, "Okay." Then he turned around and left with Uriel. Cheng Gengsheng, whose name was mentioned, was gnashing his teeth at the Neverwinter Island. The internal relationships of the newly established Sea Suppression Alliance were very complicated. It was very difficult for non-experienced island cultivators to understand the intricacies. Cheng Gengsheng hadn't been overseas for long. Logically speaking, he should have quietly endured the initial period and kept a low profile to avoid encountering the ocean fishing tower's misfortune. But once Jiang Wang's matter was resolved, he turned his attention back to business and was very quickly like a fish in water. Because he didn't plan to stay overseas for too long, he was very busy. Today, when he finally returned to Neverwinter Island, What awaited him was Mog Valley cultivator Fu Yanqing, who had been on Neverwinter Island for several days, and a terrifying debt, a total of 4,000 primeval stones. What kind of concept was this? One primeval stone was equivalent to an A-grade meridian unlocking pill, which was equivalent to an ordinary storage box. The MO family's top-selling premium squirrel box only sold for 3 primeval stones last year. Did Jiang Qingyang invent some kind of Taoist technique to use primeval stones to smash people? Was his hidden identity actually the successor of the Shang family? Or was his battle record in the bewildering world bought with money? Otherwise, why would he owe so much? Despite his anger, Cheng Gengsheng had no choice but to hand over the money obediently. Others didn't know about Jiang Wang's family background, but how could he not know? That kid was devoted to cultivation and didn't put any energy into making money, so he didn't have any talent for business. He was the one who mainly operated the Dushing Trading Company, and the one surnamed Jiang relied on his salary to survive. When he returned to the Zhuang state, he had to find a reason to sponsor a lot of travel expenses. For 1,000 primeval stones, he was afraid he would have to sell this guy. He was also very skeptical about this price. Who could be sure about the bewildering world? You can't just say it's worth whatever you want and owe whatever you want, right? But since Jiang Wang had admitted it himself, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. When he gave out all the primeval stones, he felt like someone had cut his flesh with a knife. It was painful. After sending off the smiling Fu Yanqing, Cheng Gengsheng said in a bad mood, "Where's that guy from the Tian family? Invite him in." Zhong Xuanxin left with his eyes drooping in shame. This guy didn't succeed in showing off earlier, so he was very embarrassed these days. Taking advantage of the time, when Chongxian left, Cheng Gengsheng said fiercely, "Just wait and see. I'll make Jiang Wang work like a horse for me." 14, who was standing at the side, tilted his helmet and didn't say anything. There's an update tonight. Also, I'm now ranked 30th in the monthly votes list, 4th in the Xinxia category. I feel everyone's enthusiasm. Because it's the beginning of the month, many books haven't been published yet, so the results are only temporary. We don't have as many readers as others, so we don't dare to ask for too much. At the end of the month, I'll be satisfied if I can maintain the top 10 in the Xinxia category. Our goal this month is to maintain the top 10. Brothers and sisters, let's go. Chapter 973. Cheng Gengsheng really didn't know much about Tian Chong. He only knew that he was a rising young talent of the Tian family in recent years, and Jiang Wang had some interactions with him in the Seven Stars Valley. However, Jiang Wang had hinted that he had something on this person. Knowing this was enough, Cheng Gengsheng naturally knew how to use it. Based on the situation of the entire offshore archipelago, this fatty already had his own plan. He had always done business by communicating with all parties and taking advantage of the situation. He rarely took everything for himself. It was the same in the offshore archipelago. This time, Neverwinter Island had some seafood business and planned to cooperate with Tyrannical Horn Island. He didn't expect the Tian family to be so active that Tian Chong actually came to talk in person. Cheng Gengsheng naturally wouldn't refuse to communicate. Both parties sat according to their positions. Cheng Gengsheng was at least twice as big as Tian Chong. Squeezing on the big chair, he naturally gave people a sense of oppression. However, his fat face was full of smiles, and he seemed very approachable. He opened his mouth and said, "Young Master Tian Chong is really a talent. I think the future of the Tian family depends on you." Tian Chong had been blown by the sea breeze for a while, and now he looked capable and capable. During this period of time, he was in power and had some dignity. However, when he heard Cheng Gengsheng's words, he almost fell to the ground. "Young Master Chongxian, don't joke. The future of the Tian family naturally depends on young Master Omping. I'm just following young Master Omping and doing my best to assist him." Cheng Gengsheng wasn't very surprised by Tian Chang's attitude. Although young people were naturally arrogant, Tian Omping's name was enough to crush all arrogance. Not to mention Tian Chong, who had just emerged. Tian Antai was Tian Omping's biological brother. He was older than him by 17 years and was already a county governor. Wasn't he afraid of him like a tiger? However, there was no one else present at this time. Tian Chang's attitude was still so upright. It could be seen that he was a very shrewd person and couldn't be underestimated. He was a little curious. How did Jiang Wang get hold of this guy's weakness? Assistant. Chung Gung Sheng laughed casually. Young Master Anping's ambition is astonishing. Tian Chong turned pale with fright and said sternly, Young Master Sheng, please don't spout nonsense. I drank too much yesterday. It's indeed a bit of nonsense. Chung Gung Sheng chuckled and changed the topic. The Sea Suppression Alliance is newly established and has unified all the powers in the nearby islands. There's no need for me to explain the difference between the coastal archipelago that's independent and the coastal archipelago that's united as one. Young Master Tian Chong naturally knows the difference. A lot of rules have changed, and a lot of businesses have a new situation. Even he was unwilling to provoke that lunatic. Therefore, he only teased her once and skipped over the topic. As for what he was thinking in his heart, only he knew. That's why I'm here to visit young Master Sheng. It was best not to talk about Tian Anping if he could. Tian Chong hurriedly said, Young Master Sheng's performance in the Battle of Chiang could be said to be amazing. In my opinion, Zheng Genjia won't be a second person to be the next family head. Of course, in contrast to Tian Chang's panic, Chung Gung Sheng only grinned in the face of the other party's expectations. That smile was still cordial, but there was a sudden domineering aura. Marquis Baoong, who else but me? Yes, Tian Chong echoed. Young Master Sheng is a genius. Today, I'm here to ask for guidance. This was the first time they met. Neither of them was in a hurry to judge the other. Instead, they flattered and tested each other. Chung Gung Sheng waved his hand and said unceremoniously, Since you think so highly of me, brother, and I do have a bit of ability, then I'll be the one leading the charge for the seafood business this time. The business world was like a battlefield, but it wasn't exactly the same. This so-called vanguard sounded like taking on more responsibilities, but in reality, it was taking up more shares. Others were pushing the boat with the current, but this fatty was flying with the current. Tian Chang's thoughts turned quickly. He smiled and said, Actually, who will be the vanguard and who will be the vanguard isn't the most important thing. Our two families are going to have a long-term relationship. Ever since the Battle of Chiang, our Tian family's Chongji Island still has many years left for you to develop and manage. Chongji Island had been lost. Now that it was in the hands of Gu Huaixin's faction, the Tian family naturally knew. The Tian family wasn't in a hurry. That was because the division of ownership of the offshore islands was a little complicated. There were management rights and ownership rights. This was because during times of chaos, the powers on the islands rose and fell. Transactions between the islands were very frequent. Today, I'll lend you this island for 3 years. Tomorrow, you'll lend me that island for 5 years. These were common occurrences. However, the management rights of each party didn't affect the ownership rights. Using Chongji Island as an example, although Chung Gung Sheng obtained the management rights for 10 years, the ownership rights still belonged to the Tian family. No matter what happened, it was fine if the Zheng Genjia didn't want to return it or if they lost Chongji Island. Once the 10 years were up, the Tian family would have the right to take back Chongji Island. They would be able to start a war without fear of being interfered with. This was the rule of the offshore islands, and all the islands recognized it. After the establishment of the Sea Suppression Alliance, it didn't change. If it wasn't for the clear division of management rights and ownership rights, the Zheng Genjia could have let the island be taken away in the 9th year. At that time, who would the Tian family cry to? It would be a joke if Chongji Island was attacked by pirates and their defenses were breached. However, the Joshuan sect followed up and expelled the pirates. At the same time, they obtained the management rights of Chongji Island, the 9 years of management rights that the Zheng Genjia exchanged benefits with. This was undoubtedly a huge fortune. One must know that the Zheng Genjia paid the Qi County governor's position for the 10 years of management rights of Chongji Island. Tian Chong specifically mentioned this to remind Chung Gung Sheng that once the 10 years were up, how would the Zheng Genjia pay? At that time, the Tian family could use their ownership rights to force the Jiushuan sect to leave the island. They also had the right to start a war. However, after all, the Tian family had given the Zhonginjia a complete and undefended Chongji Island. If they wanted to take it back, they would have to contend with the Jiushuan sect. In this matter, the Zhonginjia didn't have a right to. In that case, should we make appropriate concessions in this cooperation? Zhong Xuansheng smiled and changed the topic. The entire Sea Subjugation Alliance has 99 votes. Apart from Ocean Fishing Abodes 5 votes, and Mog Valley and Jueming Island 6 votes. The remaining 88 votes belong to 88 clans. Among these 88 families, Neverwinter Island and Tyrannical Horn Island each have 1 vote. He seemed to be avoiding the topic, but Tian Chong didn't seem to mind. He sighed and said, "That's right. The fishing sea tower has been in the coastal islands for too long. It's bigger underwater than it is above water. Although we rely on the qi, we still have to work hard to get a piece of meat." Chung Gongsheng looked at Tian Chong calmly and suddenly said, "The Zhonginjia is willing to return Chongji Island to the Tian family of days unconditionally. We don't want a single day of the remaining 9 years." He said meaningfully, "But Chongji Island isn't in our hands now. You have to get it yourself." The previous agreement of 10 years was signed by the Zhonginjia and the Tian family. If the Zhonginjia gave up on the possibility of taking back the management rights, that meant the Tian family could directly take back the ownership rights. Even if the Zhonginjia didn't want to fight with the Jiushuan sect, they could still sell the management rights to Mog Valley. But now, they were giving it up unconditionally. What was Chung Gongsheng thinking? Chapter 974. Linhai County. After bidding farewell to Jiang Wang, Lin Yuxi remained expressionless. The blue metal had its own secret channels and could find a place to rest and reorganize everywhere. But Uriel hadn't used the blue metal's resources in a long time. The two of them walked in the crowd like an ordinary pair of grandfather and grandson, close and natural. In a bad mood? Uriel asked casually. Because of Jiang Qingyang's attitude, he didn't think that Lin Yuxi had any special feelings for Jiang Wang. They hadn't interacted much, so it shouldn't be that bad. But Jiang Wang was an outstanding young man. His attitude of avoiding people as if they were snakes and scorpions would inevitably make people doubt themselves. Lin Yuxi didn't deny it, but asked a question. If he's a good person and he hates me, does that mean I'm a bad person? Uriel smiled. The way people judge good people and bad people is different from the way we blue metal enforce right and wrong. You're not a good person, and I'm not a good person either. But neither of us are bad people. The law is the rule, the law. A true blue metal must first strip away the definition of good and bad and only follow the law. It's normal that Jiang Qingyang avoids us. Anyone who is targeted by us will hate us. But this isn't a reason for us to doubt ourselves. We don't need to change because of this. An outstanding green card is bound to be loathed by people and loathed by ghosts. The more outstanding they are, the more so. Because only rules matter, not human feelings. Uriel opened his palm and counted the lines on it, as if recounting the stories of those days. But when people judge good or bad, they only care about good to me or bad to me, not good or bad in itself. This is human nature. But the law is merciless. Grandpa Wu. Lin Yuxi thought for a moment and said, "You said that we should strip away right and wrong and only follow the law and the rules. But you've been investigating the Tian family for so many years, and you haven't received any permission or laws to support you. Isn't this against the rules, against the law, against your Tao? It's good that you can think this far." Uriel retracted his hand and said softly, "The permission and support you mentioned are not law. No matter which big shot's order or whose verbal order it was not law. The law was as fair as water. It tended to be balanced everywhere and treated everyone equally. Dharma is the xieji. Once it sees evil, it will touch it without caring about anything else. It had nothing to do with loyalty, filial piety, virtuousness, stupidity, good or evil, noble or lowly. If there were evil deeds, the law would punish them. The people you said should have supported me, but they didn't follow the law. They followed the power, the pros and cons, the considerations. In their world, the value of a person or a family was above the law. My path is different from theirs. I follow my dharma. I walk my Tao. I don't care about anything. I don't avoid people or ghosts. Regardless of everything, humans and ghosts. Lin Yuxi murmured these words and felt a particularly resolute power. She seemed to have gained something, but also seemed to have lost something. After she digested the information and walked for a while, Uriel suddenly asked, "Do you want to go to Sanqing Palace?" Huh? Lin Yuxi was stunned. She was raised by Uriel since she was young. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were related by blood. How could she not know that in Uriel's heart, Qi was far more important than Sanqing Palace? He had the right to cultivate in Sanqing Palace at any time, but even after the blue metal retired, he never had the thought of going there. It wasn't shameful to go to the country to seek the Tao. The country itself wouldn't stop him. However, for some people, the heart to protect the country was where the Tao lay. At this moment, Uriel's question was inevitably a little hazy. After thinking for a while, Lin Yuxi said, "My parents are both Qi people. I'm also a Qi person." Uriel didn't force her. He only said, "All right." The two were silent. The figures of the grandfather and grandson slowly disappeared in the crowd. Every drop of water in the crowd had its own magnificent life. Some jumped out of the water and were seen by the world. Some disappeared into the crowd and were unknown. But no matter if they were old or young, wise or foolish, prominent or down, everyone was in the crowd. When everyone gathered together, it was a crowd. "Master, where are we going?" Fan Qingqing asked. Although she was an inner house cultivator, she had always stayed in the offshore islands. It was her first time in Qi, so she was very curious about everything here. Her eyes didn't stop moving along the way. "I'll write you a letter. Take the letter and go to Qingyang town in the Yangland. Find a girl named Duga Xiao. She's my confidant and helps me take care of my fief. If there's anything wrong with her, teach her." Jiang Wang already had plans in mind. Qi is very safe. The people who want to kill you won't all come for at least 5 years. You can rest in Qingyang town and help me build the Zhengshang Hall. I'll go back after I'm done with the matters in Linzi. Even if cultivation aside, Fan Qingqing used to be an elder of a sect. Her vision and means were far from Duga Xiao's. But in terms of trust, Fan Qingqing was naturally far less than Duga Xiao. Part of the reason for sending Fan Qingqing to Qingyang town was that her role in Linzi was limited. Jiang Wang himself lived in Chenggang Sheng's mansion all year round. If there was anything, he didn't need Fan Qingqing at all. Sending an inner house cultivator to Qingyang town would definitely have the effect of suppressing everything. With the rapid development of the Daxing Trading Company, Qingyang town, as the hub of the trading company in the Yangland, became more and more important day by day. In fact, Duga Xiao couldn't suppress the situation. She was purely relying on Zheng Genjia's tiger skin. However, no matter how long she wore the tiger skin, she wasn't a real tiger. If Fan Qingqing went to Qingyang town, she could also teach Duga Xiao and let her grow faster. The most important reason was actually the Zhengshang Hall. His limitless glory in the offshore islands this time wasn't entirely because he was outstanding and unparalleled. Qi's extremely important support couldn't be ignored. A person with a clear mind must know where their achievements came from. If they were arrogant enough to attribute everything to themselves, then it would be time for them to destroy themselves. Similar records were common in history books. Jiang Wang's large-scale construction in his fief was part of showing his loyalty. This showed that he had a deeper sense of belonging to Qi and wanted to take root here. In comparison, the Zhengshang Halls helped to the cultivation of the five immortals' dreamy command was secondary. Fan Qingqing certainly didn't have any objections to Jiang Wang's decision. She took the letter and left. As an inner palace stage cultivator, it was impossible for him to not be able to find a place with a clear address. She wasn't a precarious place. Even ordinary people could go out for excursions. Jiang Wang rented a carriage. As usual, He didn't want to waste any time and planned to return to Lindsay in the midst of cultivation. Of course, the carriage company under the Bao family was determined not to do business with him. He had to pay double the price to rent a carriage from a local small horse carriage company. However, not long after the carriage set off, it was stopped by someone. May I ask, is Jiang Wang Lord Jiang in the carriage? Chapter 975. The carriage stopped. Judging from the voice, the visitor was between 20 and 25 years old. Jiang Wang lifted the curtain and saw a young official wearing a small brown hat. He was only at the heavenly cycle realm. However, his official uniform was enough for the coachman to stop the carriage. How old are you? Jiang Wang's first question stunned him. I'm 22, the official said honestly. The voice of an old man was naturally different from that of a young man. However, the clear age was due to the five immortals' dream command. Jiang Wang nodded with satisfaction. Speak. Why are you looking for me? I'm an official of Tianfu City. The higher-ups have ordered me to invite you to the City Lord's mansion. Our City Lord is waiting for you there. As soon as I received news of your appearance at the docks, I hurried over. Tianfu City's City Lord is looking for me? Jiang Wang's heart skipped a beat. He immediately got off the carriage. I'll go with you. He turned to the coachman and said, Please wait here. I'll set off after I'm done. Seeing that this guest was even related to Tianfu City's City Lord, the coachman didn't dare to object. He bowed his head respectfully. Sir, don't worry. There were too many ways for Tianfu City's City Lord to find Jiang Wang, not to mention stopping a boat in the coastal waters. With Tianfu City's superior status in Linhai County, Jiang Wang could have stopped him the moment he appeared at the docks. Although this official said that he had rushed over as soon as he received the news, it seemed that he was just a bit slow. However, Jiang Wang felt that Tianfu City's City Lord didn't want to look for him with great fanfare. This matter was somewhat secretive. Could it be related to the Tianfu mystic realm? Jiang Wang felt his heartbeat quicken. Tianfu City's officials didn't talk much. Jiang Wang didn't say anything either. He even took out a cloak from his storage box and put it on. Just like that, he walked into Tianfu City in silence. The City Lord's mansion's architectural style leaned towards heavy and solemn. The master of Tianfu City, whom he had met last time, was not arrogant. As soon as Jiang Wang stepped into the study and took off his cloak, he stood up to greet him. The Qi is back from Tianjiao. He sounded very happy. He casually glanced at the cloak in Jiang Wang's hand. Although he didn't say anything, his expression was clearly satisfied. The Lord of Tianfu City was surnamed Lu, and his name was Lu Zongxiao. To be able to control a place like Tianfu City, his status was not inferior to that of the county governor. Moreover, he was in the prime of his life, and there was still a chance for him to break through to the God realm. His future was limitless. The few times he had treated Jiang Wang with courtesy, it could be said that he had bent over backward to befriend him. Of course, Jiang Wang wouldn't be arrogant. He said with a smile, After seeing the Castellan, I finally realized that I've left the turbulent journey on the sea and returned to the territory of my family. LV Zongxiao laughed and said, Yes, we're family. The door to the study had already been closed by the servants. The Lord of Tianfu City's subordinates were standing guard outside, which undoubtedly showed the secrecy of this conversation. Jiang Wang was impatient. He sat down and exchanged a few pleasantries, then said, Your servant said that you summoned me for an important matter. What are the rules? Lu Zongxiao said in a low voice, Brother Jiang, I'm a few years older than you, so I'll call you brother. Although the Lord of Tianfu City had the intention to treat Jiang Wang differently, his attitude had improved after Jiang Wang's name had shaken the islands. However, Jiang Wang had no enmity with him, and he didn't have any issues with his position. There was no need to push his friend away. Thus, he decisively said, Brother Lu, if you have something to say, say it. Lu Zongxiao's face was rough, and his short beard was like a thorn. He was usually very dignified. At this moment, he stared seriously at Jiang Wang. The atmosphere naturally became serious. Brother Jiang, tell me honestly, where did your friend come from? Who? Jiang Wang's mind spun quickly. With some uneasiness and anticipation, he asked tentatively, Zhu Biqiong, she's the little girl you sent into the Tianfu secret realm. Jiang Wang had nothing to hide and said honestly, she's my good friend, the personal disciple of Granny Bijou, the elder in charge of the ocean fishing tower. She's innocent and doesn't have any tricks up her sleeve. There's nothing special about her. Brother Liu, you should know about her trial at the Tianya stage. True Lord Chengdu, Wei Sun, was also present at the sea sacrificial ceremony. If Zhu Biqiong was really special, she couldn't have hidden it from Wei Sun's eyes. Jiang Wang's words were very clear, and Lu Zongxiao had no room for doubt. However, he still sat there, somewhat troubled. What's wrong? Jiang Wang couldn't hide his eagerness. Did something happen? I don't know if it's good or bad. Lu Zongxiao sighed and said, the little girl you sent into the Tianfu secret realm, she came out. Bang! What? Jiang Wang hurriedly stood up, and the strength in his hands scattered, breaking the armrest of the chair. He couldn't care less about being rude. Is what you said true? How can it be false? Lu Zongxiao could understand and said gently, it's just that this matter is a bit strange. First, at that time, you said that you only wanted to send her into the Tianfu secret realm to be buried with her family. You didn't say that she would come out. Second, the Tianfu secret realm's recuperation period hasn't passed, so there shouldn't be any natural harvest. Third, you and I both know that in her condition at that time, she couldn't have survived. No one knows what exactly happened. Lu Zongxiao didn't say it clearly, but he had expressed what he wanted to say. First, he wanted to hold them accountable. At that time, they said that they would only send her to be buried. Why was it different from what they said? How did you treat your promise? How did you do things? You said that you would only bury her, but what about the person you sent in? She even explored it? Entering and not exiting was completely different from entering and exiting. The former could only be considered a slight exception because sending a corpse in had no effect on the Tianfu secret realm. The latter completely broke the rule of exploring the Tianfu secret realm once every 12 years. Second, he wanted to tell Jiang Wang how much risk he had taken for this matter. The Tianfu secret realm could be said to be the foundation of Tianfu City. It was the foundation of Tianfu City's transcendence. I opened the secret realm for you in advance during the recuperation period. It's not right for you to play this trick. Third, he wanted to remind Jiang Wang. He wanted to remind Jiang Wang that although Zhu Biqiong came out alive, this matter was strange, so he had to be more careful. His words were a warning and also a way to rope him in. It was enough to show that this person wasn't simple. He drew a line and expressed his dissatisfaction, but at the same time, he was also close. Even if he knew that he was being warned, he still felt very close. From his words, it could also be seen that. Why did he have to be so low-key when meeting Jiang Wang this time? It was because the Tianfu secret realm was too important. This sudden change made Lu Zongxiao very worried. Big brother Lu, I promise you in the name of Jiang Wang that I didn't know anything about this matter, nor did I have any premeditated plans. I sent Zhu Biqiong into the secret realm to fulfill her last wish. She wanted to be with her sister. Jiang Wang had always had a proper attitude toward the responsibility he should bear. He immediately said, why don't you let me take a look at the situation first and see what happened? I will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. Chapter 976. Lu Zongxiao knew how to conduct himself. As soon as Jiang Wang said this, he immediately stood up. He was tall, half a head taller than Jiang Wang. He patted Jiang Wang's shoulder and said, we'll talk about it later. You should go and see your friend first. She's at the full moon lake. I didn't let anyone disturb her. Okay. Jiang Wang couldn't stay any longer. Then I'll go. Let's go. Lu Zongxiao smiled understandingly. I'll lead the way. How can that be? Jiang Wang hurriedly said, I know the way. I can go by myself. Lu Zongxiao waved his hand and said meaningfully, not many people know that your friend came out of the heaven secret realm, so I'll take you there. When he said that, Jiang Wang understood. Lu Zhongxiao didn't want to reveal anything about the changes in the Heaven's secret realm, whether good or bad, before the results were out. This was also how it should be. He opened the protective array, walked through the high wall, and walked along the long corridor toward the full moon lake. This was already his third time here, and his mood was different each time. The first time he came, he had no fear or regret about the extremely dangerous Heaven's secret realm. There was only hatred in his heart, and only the obsession to become stronger. He only wanted to seize the opportunity. The second time he came, he was sad about sending his friend to eternal rest. He was confused about why this world was like this. Today was his third time here, and he became very nervous. She's beside the full moon lake. Ever since she came out of the secret realm, she's been sitting there without moving or talking to anyone. I think you might be able to communicate with her. Lu Zhongxiao stopped and said, I'm here. If you need anything, just call me. Okay. Zhang Wang didn't stop, and he didn't say anything else. The story of coming back from the dead wasn't shocking in the transcendent world. However, Zhu Biqiong had exhausted her vitality, and the powerful medical cultivators of the East King Valley couldn't do anything about it. The legend of the old man of Heaven's mansion was fragmented, and no useful clues could be found. He only knew that this person was once the #1 manner of the heavens and earth. In the inner mana realm, he fought against 3 famous outer mana realm experts and killed them all. Thus, he left behind an immortal reputation. A person's strength was set off by his opponent. For an outer set cultivator like Hai Zongming, no matter how many Zhang Wang killed, he might not be able to make a name for himself. However, if he could kill a few Yama Kings at the same time with his inner mansion realm cultivation, his name would immediately be known throughout the world. But that was all there was to the clues. Did the old man of the heavenly mansion die in the end? Or did he strip off the divine ability seed and wander the galaxy on his own? Or did he even die? No one knew. It was really difficult to analyze anything useful from it. As for Zhang Wang's own experience in the Heaven's secret territory, it was a complete blank. He couldn't remember what had happened inside it all. Of course, he didn't have any thoughts about it. However, Zhu Biqiong came back to life. Zhu Biqiong seemed to be alive. That innocent and naive, silly girl, who never had the intention to harm others but was always being hurt. She seemed to be alive. There was a kind of joy that couldn't be suppressed. Although he was still uneasy, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. Was it that those efforts weren't in vain? Those struggles at the edge of the cliff, weren't they all meaningless? My friend, Zhang Wang's heart was filled with great joy, but at the same time, great unease. Did she really come back to life? No matter how long the corridor was, it still had an end. At the end was the full moon pond. A clear pool of water reflected the vault of heaven. At this time, it was night, and there was only a single cloud above the full moon pond. The white cloud was reflected in the clear water. Zhang Wang didn't know why, but he looked at the sky, then at the water, and then at the person by the pond. It was a slightly frail figure, sitting silently by the pond. She wore a somewhat oversized blue robe. That was the outer garment Zhang Wang took off when he sent her into the Heaven's secret territory. Biqiong, Zhang Wang asked tentatively. The girl's shoulders trembled slightly, and then she gently turned her head. She saw Zhang Wang, the person she was familiar with, the person engraved in her heart, the person she saw in countless moments when she couldn't bear it anymore. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to shout. She pursed her lips again, as if she wanted to cry. Biqiong, is that you? Zhang Wang asked again. This young man's clear eyes were overflowing with soft and delicate hope. Is that you? He wanted an affirmative answer. Zhu Biqiong received this information accurately. So she nodded heavily. She stood up and greeted Zhang Wang. Although this world is strange, you are very familiar. She swallowed all the tears she wanted to cry, all the bitterness she wanted to vent, and smiled brightly. So I'm back. Great, Zhang Wang said happily. This is great. He almost jumped up on the spot. This is really great. He had always been calm, and he rarely lost his composure like this. It was obvious that he was really happy in his heart. He was so happy that he was almost crazy. Zhu Biqiang took a few quick steps towards him, but she stopped again. She could see that he was very happy. This kind of joy that came from her made her heart sway and her soul flutter. She could see that his joy wasn't the least bit fake. However, there was only joy. In the past, perhaps Zhu Biqiang wouldn't have thought of these things, but now she couldn't help but think, he doesn't love me. He only has the affection between friends to me, the fondness between friends. The fondness between friends should be a matter worth being happy about. Since she was reborn from death, she also had a laugh a few times. But in her heart, she couldn't control herself, couldn't break away, and couldn't help but feel sour. Do you know what I paid to be able to come back and see you? In the end, she stood 3 steps away from Jiang Wang and stopped. Fellow Taoist Jiang, thank you. There was only a distance of 3 steps between them. Zhu Biqiang thought that if he opened his arms, she would pounce on him. But Jiang Wang's hands were very disciplined, excessively disciplined. From beginning to end, there wasn't the slightest inclination of opening. What nonsense are you saying? Between us, there's no need to say thanks. Jiang Wang confidently walked forward and carefully sized up Zhu Biqiang. He confirmed that she had truly returned, confirmed that she had returned healthy and well. His eyes filled with laughter. He said, "Hurry up and tell me, how did you come out?" Zhu Biqiang finally glanced at his embrace and stowed her gaze. She reluctantly said, "I don't know, either. When I woke up, I was already at the edge of the pool. I don't know how to talk to people, so I didn't speak. I thought that I would wait for you to come over. Once you heard the news, you would definitely come over. Why didn't you hug me?" This was the question in her heart, and she only asked it in her heart. "It doesn't matter," Jiang Wang murmured. "I really can't remember what happened in the Heavenly Palace secret realm." He was pondering how to explain this to Lu Zongxiao. After all, there was no precedent for such a matter. After all, he couldn't dismiss all of Lu Zongxiao's worries by saying he couldn't remember. Even if he had the qualifications to do so now, and didn't need to fear Lu Zongxiao, the logic wasn't this. "What?" Zhu Biqiang bit her lip and said, "Is there some trouble?" "What trouble?" Jiang Wang smiled and glossed over the question. "It's great that you can come back. Let's not talk about the past. The people who bullied you have all received their retribution. What do you think about the future?" He asked her, "What do you think?" He didn't say, "Follow me in the future." He treated her as a companion and a good friend, but not as a lover or even a subordinate, although he gave her respect and autonomy. The former Zhu Biqiang happened to be someone who didn't have her own opinions and didn't know where she would go. Zhu Biqiang's eyes dimmed a bit. She reluctantly asked, "You killed Ji Shaoqing?" "Don't worry, there's no trouble. I remember what you entrusted me with." Jiang Wang didn't want her to worry, so he pretended to be relaxed and laughed. It was a fair duel, a life and death struggle. I lived, he died, and we had no complaints. It's such a simple thing. Tell me, do you want to stay in Qi in the future? Zhu Biqiang bit her lower lip and finally said, "I'll go back to the Fishing Sea building." P.S. What was the process of editing the text? For example, this paragraph, frowny face, it's a slightly thin figure sitting quietly by the pool. He's wearing a slightly loose green robe. That's the outer robe that Jiang Wang took off when he sent her into the Heaven's secret realm. The first paragraph I wrote was frowny face. It was a thin figure wearing a white dress. She was sitting silently by the pool. Her white dress and long black hair were as clean as the clear water of the full moon pool. It was not the ragged appearance she had when she was sent into the Heaven's secret realm. Jiang Wang suddenly felt apologetic. He blamed himself for not thinking of putting on a clean robe for her at that time. After editing, the reading effect didn't get better. It was just that sadness was more prominent in the beginning, and then gentleness was reflected. There might not be a perfect presentation in the world. My struggle might not mean much, but the meaning of my struggle was, the final words were the emotions I wanted to share with the readers at a certain time. I'm walking in a vast world. I hope you can feel me. Also, I've already felt you in the past 2 days. Also, Alliance leaders, please add the reader group. The first group is full. Add the second group, 115-998-229-4G Academy. Then privately message slowly reading and ask him to add everyone into the Alliance group. There are only 9 people in the Alliance group now. We urgently need people to chat. Chapter 977. Go back to the sea fishing tower. Jiang Wang didn't expect this answer. In his view, no matter where Zhu Biqiong went next, whether she stayed in Qingyang Town or Tianfu City, even if she wandered the world, she wouldn't choose to go back to the sea fishing tower. Go back to the place that hurt her. Jiang Wang was a bit anxious. Is there anything else in that place that makes you reluctant to leave? Zhu Biqiong lowered her eyes and said softly, Master is already dead. Ji Shaoqing is also dead. No one will target me anymore. I grew up there, and I really don't know where to go. She didn't want to be asked to stay, but she didn't want this kind of reason. It shouldn't be for your own good, or for your own good, but I want you to stay. Unfortunately, Jiang Wang didn't understand now. In other words, there was no place for a young heart for him to understand. I killed Ji Shaoqing. Your former fellow disciples won't have a good attitude towards you, Jiang Wang said earnestly. Moreover, you've already been expelled from the sect. No one has a reason to hate me, because I didn't hurt anyone. Zhu Biqiong calmly responded. Moreover, you've already helped me clear my name. Since I'm innocent, the sea fishing tower shouldn't expel me. Even if they don't want to, they can't do it. Jiang Wang looked at Zhu Biqiong with some surprise. He didn't expect Zhu Biqiong to say such words. These words went against his intuition, but objectively, things could be seen this way. Most of the time, the sea fishing tower would certainly respect its rules. Zhu Biqiong was a girl who didn't hurt anyone. Her miserable situation would naturally dispel a lot of people's hostility. The problem was, how could Zhu Biqiong dispel the fog of emotions and see all this so calmly? Was this still the stupid girl who foolishly took out the Mirage Pearl to exchange for a secret method? Or was she the girl who was fooled by Hu Xiaoming? He had his reasons for not letting Zhu Biqiong stay in Qingyang Town from the beginning. When they were at the Tianya stage, he wanted Zhu Biqiong to stay in Qingyang Town in the future because at that time, her cultivation had been completely destroyed and she could live a stable and ordinary life there. Now, he didn't know what Zhu Biqiong had experienced in the Heavenly Palace Secret Realm. He had actually reappeared with the cultivation of the Inner Palace. What reason would she have to go to Qingyang Town again? It was impossible for him to order Zhu Biqiong around like he ordered Fan Qingqing. Moreover, Zhu Biqiong had profited from her misfortune. She had achieved the inner mansion at such a young age and had a bright future ahead of her. Staying in Qingyang Town was a waste of her talent. Actually, he was thinking of ways to let Zhu Biqiong join the Blue Metal and get an official position in the Qi Ministry. Then, she could have her own goals and have a bright future. Of course, the premise was that Zhu Biqiong was willing. But now, Zhu Biqiong wanted to go back to the Fishing Ocean building. Jiang Wang found that he couldn't find a reason to convince her. After thinking for a while, Jiang Wang said, In principle, I respect any decision you make, but I still hope you can think it through. Although you grew up in the Diaohai Tower, you don't know much about it. In fact, if you want, you can have a better development in the Qi Ministry. I have some friends here. Zhu Biqiong interrupted Jiang Wang for the first time. I've already owed you a lot. How can I trouble you? What trouble? We're good friends, aren't we? Jiang Wang was a little annoyed. Yes, we're good friends. Good friends help each other, not drag each other down. At this time, the emotions in Zhu Biqiong's eyes had dissipated. She was the calmer one. She said with a chuckle, I've decided to go back to the Diaohai Tower. I'm too stupid. I can only stay in familiar places. Otherwise, it's easy to get lost. I didn't work hard enough before, but I'll work harder in the future. Give me your blessings. Her attitude was so firm, and her will was so resolute. This girl was different from before. Jiang Wang clearly realized this. But his eyes, ears, and spirit sense all told him that this person was indeed Zhu Biqiong. After experiencing life and death, it was normal to have some changes. Okay, Jiang Wang wasn't the kind of person who would force a friend's free will. He could only compromise. If you're sure it's the best choice for you, then do it. Zhu Biqiang said, when it comes to life choices, not everyone can choose the best. But let's try not to regret it. Jiang Wang didn't understand. He didn't know where it came from, but he was more happy. The joy of coming back from death's door. He took a few steps forward and looked at the clear water of the full moon pond. No matter what, I'm very grateful for this place. Zhu Biqiang looked at his back, and her eyes became very soft. She said softly, I'll tell you a secret. In the future, tell your friends not to come to the Tianfu secret realm. When Jiang Wang turned back, her eyes had returned to calmness. What's wrong? Do you know what changed there? Jiang Wang asked. I don't remember what happened there, but I vaguely know. Zhu Biqiang said, there's nothing there, only a bubble. You won't gain anything if you participate. This wasn't a secret that should have been told, but she still said it because of her unreserved trust in Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang was stunned. Of course, he realized what this sentence meant. The Tianfu secret realm was gone. Then he thought about the legend of the Tianfu secret realm. The Tianfu secret realm wasn't a natural secret realm born from heaven and earth. It was a complete divine ability seed, the divine ability that made the Tianfu elder famous, Moon's reflection. It was unknown why it could be separated, why it could exist independently, why it appeared there, and why it could continue. Now, it had disappeared for some reason. Did it create Zhu Biqiang? Zhu Biqiang had the moon's reflection. The divine ability was now in Zhu Biqiang's hands. So what was left here was only a bubble. Lu Zongxiao must have gone crazy. If the Qi knew this, they wouldn't let Zhu Biqiang leave so easily. Jiang Wang immediately said, if you insist on going back to the fishing sea tower, then go back as soon as possible. Take advantage of the fact that the Sea Suppression Alliance has just been established and no one has the energy to pay attention to you. Go back as soon as possible. Zhu Biqiang glanced at him. This glance was very light, very faint, as if there was no trace and it wasn't deep. Then she turned around and said, okay. She walked out. Jiang Wang thought quietly for a few seconds, then quickly walked in front of her. He stepped into the corridor before her and called out to Lu Zongxiao from afar. Brother Lu, I know what's going on. Lu Zongxiao smiled. Oh. Before he could ask about Zhu Biqiang, Jiang Wang had already put his arm around his shoulder and affectionately pulled him to the side. Brother Lu, it's like this. Zhu Biqiang quietly walked past them, still wearing Jiang Wang's green robe. It was a very ordinary robe. Jiang Wang had several similar ones in his storage box. Jiang Wang didn't care at all. Of course, Zhu Biqiang remembered, but she didn't want to return it. Chapter 978. Lu Zongxiao didn't care about Zhu Biqiang. This in itself was a kind of attitude. Big brother Lu, you know the rules of the Heavenly Palace secret realm. You won't remember anything that happened in the secret realm after you came out. Of course, I'm not trying to shirk responsibility. Jiang Wang chose his words carefully and said slowly, I don't know what happened to my friend in the Heavenly Palace secret realm, but she was lucky enough to have a miracle and come back to life. You gave her this opportunity, so I have only endless gratitude for you. But in any case, she went in and out of the Heavenly Palace secret realm during the adjustment period, which will inevitably cause great losses to the Heavenly Palace secret realm. So, he held out a glazed water bottle in his left hand and a dragon-headed cane in his right. He handed it to LV Zongxiao and said, Here are 2 items. One of them is called the Cloud Bottle, which can store water and raise beasts. The other is called the Xingxi Cane, which can tame beasts. They are both treasures that can be used by outer sect cultivators. Big brother Lu, you can pick one and take it away. Take it as a token of my apology. Later, when the Heavenly Palace secret realm is officially opened and we truly determine the losses of the secret realm, I will increase the compensation. If he directly stated that the entire Heavenly Palace secret realm had disappeared, the reaction of Heavenly Palace City and even the Qi Department was completely predictable. The loss of a secret realm, Zhu Biqiang, who caused the accident, Jiang Wang, who sent Zhu Biqiang into the Heavenly Palace secret realm, and even her friends who opened the door for Jiang Wang, and even Lu Zongxiao, who opened the door, had to bear the responsibility. Perhaps this was why it could still be a bubble? Zhu Biqiang deliberately left an illusory bubble to avoid such trouble? How could the previous Zhu Biqiang have thought of this? But in the case of not knowing the disappearance of the Heavenly Palace secret realm and not knowing the details of the secret realm, Jiang Wang's compensation was already very generous. In the case of not being able to determine the losses, he directly took out a magic weapon used by outer sect cultivators as early compensation. What else could it be? Moreover, if there were other losses later on, Jiang Wang promised to make up for it. Jiang Qingyang was a trustworthy person, so his promise was reliable. This kind of generosity made people unable to find fault with him. As for Jiang Wang himself, the Heaven's secret territory opened once every 12 years. The last time it was open was last year. The next time it was officially opened was already the year 3930 of the Taoist calendar. Jiang Wang thought that by that time, he would be able to take on such a responsibility. At that time, they would compensate and account for what they had to. He would not let this big brother Lu suffer any losses. Lu Zongxiao was clearly also very surprised. After hearing the introduction of the two magic tools, he asked with great interest, "Are these Brother Zhang's tokens of love?" Jiang Wang didn't understand why he asked that, but he still explained, That's not the case. I got it from the battlefield. Dusky cloud, Xingxi, looking at the sky at dawn, looking at the clouds at dusk, I miss you when I walk, I miss you when I sit. LV Zongxiao recited softly and sighed. The original owner of this set of magic tools was an infatuated lover. This Lu Zongxiao had a boorish appearance, but she did not expect him to be so knowledgeable and meticulous. Is that so? Jiang Wang smiled. It's not important. If Big Brother Lu likes them, you could take both of them. It was indeed not important. No matter what kind of person Granny Bijou used to be, what kind of affectionate past she had, what kind of story she had experienced. When she threw Zhu Biqiang out to die, none of that mattered anymore. The Dusky Cloud and Xingxi staff were not of much help to Jiang Wang's current combat system. There was nothing to be reluctant about taking them out to solve problems. Of course, a great killing weapon like the five-colored fish would not be given away together with the Dusky Cloud. He would take it out and find another container to store it. Brother Jiang is truly a generous and righteous person. Lu Zongxiao reached out and patted Jiang Wang's shoulder. However, I am not a harsh and ungrateful person. Why would I want magic tools? Quickly take them away. How can this be? If Big Brother Lu doesn't accept them, I will feel uneasy. Why not? Lu Zongxiao pulled a long face and looked very serious. Your friend only left after reserving the divine ability. In the history of the heavenly secret realm, this kind of thing has happened 800 times, if not 1,000. What does it matter if it happens one more time or one less time? It's too much to ask you to compensate. The Zhu Biqiang Lu Zongxiao saw had only reserved the divine ability and had yet to obtain it. In other words, the Zhu Biqiang he saw was in the soaring dragon realm, and the Zhu Biqiang he saw was in the inner mansion realm. The Zhu Biqiang they saw had different cultivation levels. Lu Zongxiao was a cultivator who had the potential to reach the divine ascension realm, so he would not make such a mistake. Then, was this one of the abilities of the catoptric deflection? How mysterious was this legendary divine ability? Jiang Wang did not think too much about this problem. The more Lu Zongxiao refused to compensate, the more embarrassed he felt. Big Brother Lu, what you said was under normal circumstances when the heavenly secret realm was open. Our situation this time is different. You made an exception to open the secret realm during the resting period, and now you must let me express my gratitude. I opened the heavenly secret realm in advance without any conditions. You have already paid what should be paid. Lu Zongxiao waved his hand and said firmly, All right, you don't have to say anymore. Your willingness to call me Big Brother is already a gesture. It's enough. If you continue to push and pull, it will hurt our relationship, Brother Jiang. At this point, Jiang Wang really did not have any leeway to say anything else. Lu Zhongxiao's intention to make friends was so obvious. If he continued to resist, it would inevitably be untactful. He thought for a moment and put away the cloud Muzuan and Xingxi's staff. He said, "Big brother Lu, then I will listen to you and put it aside for now. When the heavenly secret realm opens again and determines the loss, we will decide on the compensation." He had already made up his mind to think of a way to compensate in the year 3930 of the Taoist calendar. He firmly believed that at that time, he was qualified to help Lu Zhongxiao. Lu Zhongxiao was also very satisfied with Jiang Wang's attitude. Tianjiao was rare, and a Tianjiao that valued trust and friendship added to the investment value. The reason was simple. Everyone knew that Tian Amping was the best in Tianjiao, but how many people dared to cooperate with him? When he went crazy, he even killed Lu Shantong, a descendant of a famous family. It was not surprising that he killed a few partners. "Let's do as Brother Jiang says." Lu Zhongxiao laughed and patted Jiang Wang's shoulder hard. On a lonely keeled boat sailing on the sea, there was only a young woman wrapped in a green robe in the cabin. She sat quietly for a long time without saying anything. She was silent. A teardrop fell from the corner of her eye. It fell in front of her, but suddenly expanded. It was as if the teardrop had turned into a full moon. The teardrop turned into a water mirror. A clear face was reflected in the mirror, but it was not Zhu Biqiong, who was sitting silently. She was somewhat similar to Zhu Biqiong, but her face was softer and gentler. Her eyes, however, had a bit of ruthlessness. This complicated and indescribable temperament was different from Zhu Biqiong's naivety. If Hu Xiaoming was still alive to see this scene, he would be shocked, because she was Zhu Suyao. Chapter 979. The woman in the water mirror spoke. Her voice was gentle, but there was a lingering resentment in it. "Sister, what did I tell you? All men deserve to die. When they like you, they are very affectionate and can't wait to beg for pity and lick your shoes. When they don't like you, they throw you away and can't wait to trample you into the mud." Zhu Biqiong lowered her eyes, "But he doesn't like me. If he doesn't like you, then he deserves to die." The woman in the water mirror fiercely said, "You are so good. Why doesn't he like you? He has to pay the price." "No." Zhu Biqiong's movement was very light, but she firmly shook her head. "I won't hurt him. Look at him. He's sending you off like a plague and can't wait to get rid of you. Even so, do you still think he is good? No. He is worried about me. He is afraid that there will be trouble if I stay. Come on. He has so many friends and such strong connections. What trouble can there be if he keeps you in Qi? You want to help him, and you still want to help him. But he dislikes you. He dislikes you for not having enough talent, cultivation, wisdom, and not being able to help him. Men are always like this. They don't care about women, only value. They only care about how much you are worth. What is love? Men don't know. No, it's not like that." Zhu Biqiong's voice was weak. In front of Zhu Suyao, she could not even speak loudly, but she stubbornly opposed. "In this world, there are bad people and good people. Jiang Wang, he thinks for me. He has never hurt me. Thinks for you? Ha 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 ha." The woman in the mirror laughed wildly for a while before suddenly stopping and fiercely said, "If he really thinks for you, why didn't he immediately send someone to take you away from Fishing Ocean Building when you risked your life to send a message to save him? Why did he let you suffer in sea prison?" Zhu Biqiong pursed her lips and said, "He is still very young. He can't think of everything. It is inevitable that he doesn't think of things. I can only blame myself. I didn't think of the consequences of this matter and didn't run away first." "Huh? Didn't think of everything?" "Going out to sea once, although it was said to be difficult and dangerous, in fact, he had earned a lot. Well, had he ever suffered a loss? Look at that Tianfu City's city lord's flattery. To be able to escape unscathed after killing Ji Shaoqing. Does this kind of person look like someone who doesn't think things through?" Zhu Suyao raised her eyebrows. "When you were suffering on the world's edge stage, his friends really had no way to save you? Did he really think of every possible way and put in all his efforts? Or do they not think that you are worth the price they have to pay? Your position in Jiang Wang's heart will determine how far Jiang Wang's friends will go. In the mirror, she stared into Zhu Biqiang's eyes. It was as if her eyes had pierced through her heart. You know my sister, don't you? Zhu Biqiang bit her lower lip and said, He already said that he treats me as a friend. He didn't deceive me. As for his friends, I don't know them, and they don't have any responsibility to do anything for me. I'm already very grateful for what you've done for me. This world is very dangerous. You can't always be so naive and think of others in a positive light. When something happened to you, those Marshall brothers and sisters, who cared about you? Even mother-in-law only cares about value. Isn't that right? If I can fight for resources for her, she will dote on you in every possible way. If I'm gone, she will squeeze you dry of all your value and then abandon you. Not everyone is like this. Zhu Biqiang didn't know how to refute and could only repeat. Not everyone is like this. At least, Jiang Wang is not like this. In the mirror, Zhu Suyao's voice became gentle. My foolish sister, you're always like this, always thinking about others. But in this world, apart from me, who will truly think about you? Sister, Zhu Biqiang looked at her with eyes filled with tears. In the mirror, Zhu Suyao reached out with her hand as if she wanted to wipe away her tears. Rest well, my sister. With me here, no one will bully you in the future. The waves gently moved and the boat slowly rocked. Seabirds freely flew at a low altitude. There was the sound of a ballad in the distance, but no one knew who was singing. Everyone says that it's good to be a transcendent. You have to go through hardships one step at a time, and life and death are your fingertips. Fighting the angry sea, fighting the fierce and stubborn, exhausting the wisdom and courage, defeating the chief turtle. Everyone says that being a transcendent is a good thing. There's no peace in the world, but I can't see it. A magnificent April passed by. It was worth mentioning that until the end, the first place of April's Ocean Merit Roll was still Jiang Wang. The person in second place was only 100 high merit points away from Jiang Wang, but he was still 100 high merit points away. Progress on the Ocean Merit Roll was not only dependent on one's own strength, but also on whether one's opponent gave him a chance. Obviously, this person was lacking in luck. Of course, it could also be that his luck was good. This was because when the Ocean Merit Roll mobilized cultivators to participate in the war, many cultivators also died in battle. To be able to leave one's name on the first Ocean Merit Roll and occupy the first position on the secondary roll was naturally a huge honor. The benefits that the Fishing Ocean Tower gave were not few either. There was a reward of 100 primordial stones. Of course, they were all pocketed by Cheng Gongsheng. In addition, there was another benefit that was only announced in the last few days. The Sea Guardian Alliance established the Ocean Guardian system specifically for high merit points. Every human cultivator who participated in the bewildering World War and obtained the corresponding high merit points could automatically become a member of the Ocean Guardian. As the high merit points changed, they would receive different treatment and benefits. Even the Ocean Guardian of each rank would be given a salary. The Ocean Guardian had a total of 9 ranks and was recognized by the Sea Guardian Alliance. However, it did not completely belong to the Sea Guardian Alliance. 1,000 high merit points was the threshold for becoming a rank 1 Ocean Guardian. Any cultivator, regardless of which faction they belonged to, could enter the Ocean Merit Roll and become an Ocean Guardian, as long as they killed the Sea Clan. This was a huge expenditure. For the Sea Guardian Alliance, this was investing resources to buy influence, and at the same time, it would strengthen the relationship between the Sea Guardian Alliance and all the cultivators who participated in the bewildering World War. For Jiang Wang, this was a real benefit, a real influence, and a real honor. Because he obtained 11,300 high merit points, he just crossed the threshold of a rank 2 Ocean Guardian and became one of the only 2 rank 2 Ocean Guardians among the cultivators in the outer tower of the coastal islands. The other was the second on the ocean merit roll. From now on, Jiang Wang's title, in addition to the Qis Xingyang Town Man and rank 4 Blue Medal Constable, could also be added as a rank 2 Ocean Guardian. In a sense, the last honor was beyond the scope of Qi and was an honor for the human race. If it were not for the conflict with the Fishing Sea Tower, he could already do whatever he wanted in the Sea Guardian Alliance's sphere of influence with this last title alone. Of course, the significance might be greater. The Sea Guardian Alliance had raised a big banner, but in reality, the Qi's title was more intimidating. At this time, Jiang Wang was already in Linzi. In the Shashan villa, he received the information sent by Lin Yuxi, requesting monthly votes. Chapter 980. Lin Yuxi did not come in person. Instead, a middle-aged man dressed neatly came. Even his hair was neatly combed. Judging from his sharp eyes, which habitually scanned the surroundings, he should be a blue medal. However, there was no medal hanging from his waist, so it was unknown what rank he was at. He came with a brocade box and only said that his surname was Lin. He did not introduce himself. Jiang Wang did not want to get to the bottom of it. He did not care how much inheritance the famous arrestor Lin Kuang left to Lin Yuxi. However, the completeness of the information in the brocade box still surprised Jiang Wang. There were a total of 3 books in the brocade box. The first book recorded the history of Liangshan Tower, starting from the founder of the sect until today in the year 3919 of the Taoist calendar. There were detailed records of every important node in this place. There is a lot of information that even the current leader of Liangshan Tower might not know what happened and what kind of impact it had. However, in this book, it was not a secret at all. The degree of control that the royal court of the Qi had over all the sects in the country was beyond Jiang Wang's imagination. It was no wonder that they could order and conscript people at will. It was also no wonder that the grievances between the sects were often resolved by reporting to the authorities. There were very few private fights. From this point of view, although the sects in the Qi were called sects, they were just another form of government office. They could not be mentioned in the same breath as forces like East King Valley and Fishing Sea Tower. The second book in the brocade box contained information about Chumi. This book should be newly organized. Unlike the old smell of the first book, this book had the smell of fresh ink. The information was very detailed, including Chumi's master, his disciple, and his family. His master died in the bewildering world before him at the hands of the sea race. His disciple had died even earlier, before they went to the bewildering world. As for his family, Chumi had always been a cunning person. No one in Liangshan Tower knew that he had a family. Perhaps even his master did not know. However, the blue medal had related records. Chumi had a wife and a son. They were all ordinary people and lived in an ordinary town in Baolong County. It was far away from Qingtu County, where Liangshanglo was active. Liangshanglo does not have a fixed sect base. Due to its bad reputation, the organization is also relatively loose. This record made Jiang Wang secretly shocked. Even an unknown Chumi could have such detailed information about him. His roots were dug so deeply. What about the other people with names? Even what about himself? The third book was about the case of Chumi being punished to go to the bewildering world to clear his name. The whole case was clear as day, as well as all the hidden secrets in it. These 3 booklets were stacked together to form a thick stack. They recorded a person's life. It could be seen that Lin Yuxi had really put a lot of thought into Jiang Wang's casual request for the sake of retreating. I don't want to take advantage of you. Anyway, I put in a lot of effort, and I'm seriously paying you back. As for whether you need such detailed information, it's your own business. Jiang Wang didn't make any comments about it. He just put away the brocade box and said to the middle-aged man, surnamed Lin, "I've received the information. Please convey my gratitude to Constable Lin." The man calmly looked at him. "Is there anything lacking or incomplete? I can help you add it at any time." Jiang Wang shook his head. "No, I'm very satisfied." "That's good." As the man spoke, he walked out without hesitation. Please wait. It seemed that both sides had reached an agreement on keeping a distance. Jiang Wang stopped and didn't see him off. The steward of this villa came forward and asked carefully, "Young master, who is this? He's so arrogant." Everyone in the villa knew that Jiang Wang and Cheng Gengsheng were as close as real brothers, especially after Cheng Gengsheng gained the upper hand in the competition for the position of the head of the family. He often stayed in Marquis Boang's mansion to strengthen his position as the heir. In this villa, Jiang Wang could be said to be another master. Jiang Wang smiled. He's not a big shot. He's just a fourth-grade blue metal constable. Why? Are you going to teach him a lesson? How can I do that? The steward shrunk his neck and moved to the side dejectedly. It was inevitable that these people would have some disdain for the Zhonggenjia. But no matter what, he didn't dare to say that he didn't take a fourth-grade blue metal constable seriously. Jiang Wang casually said, "Prepare a carriage. I'm going to Chuiyang County." The steward was very efficient and immediately went to arrange it. In less than 15 minutes, a luxuriously decorated carriage stopped in front of the villa. Jiang Wang didn't like such ostentatious carriages, but he didn't say anything. He got into the carriage and left the villa. He was going out this time to deal with Chu Mi's funeral. He wanted to see Chu Mi's wife and son and see what he could do. Chu Mi's wife and son lived in Baolong County, which was right next to Chuiyang County. Chuiyang County was where the Zhonggenjia's clan was located. Jiang Wang chose to go to Chuiyang County in the name of helping Cheng Gengsheng burn incense at the clan's ancestral shrine. He planned to find an opportunity to secretly go to Baolong County after he arrived at Zhonggenjia. The reason why it was so troublesome was because Chu Mi definitely didn't want anyone to know about his wife and son. Chu Mi had kept it a secret for his entire life and let his wife and son live a normal life. He naturally had his own considerations. Now that he was dead, Jiang Wang definitely wouldn't allow himself to leak this information out in the name of goodwill. He didn't know what day it was. Jiang Wang cultivated in the villa on Mount Xia for a few days. No one came to visit him, and he didn't see anything. Today, it finally moved. However, after the carriage left the Xia mountain villa, before it had time to leave Linzi, it was stopped by someone. "Young master, someone wants to see you." The carriage driver's voice sounded outside the curtain. Jiang Wang temporarily stopped cultivating. He raised his finger slightly, and the curtain was swept up by a breeze. Ever since he obtained the wind of Buzhou's supernatural power, he also began to allocate a portion of his energy to cultivate the wind element Taoist technique. He used it whenever he had the time. It wasn't because he was greedy, but because he wanted to use the supernatural power better. After all, the wind of Buzhou that was infused with the killing nail was already stronger than the true Samadhi fire. A tall man was waiting cautiously beside the carriage with his body half bowed. Jiang Wang already didn't have much of an impression of this person. Only when he saw the pair of abnormally thick skeletal hands did he vaguely remember that this person was Lin Hai's #1 soaring dragon, the sea overturning hand yin air. When Jiang Wang was in the soaring dragon realm, this person and that nuisance Pingxi twin demons had the qualifications to fight against Jiang Wang. As for now, it was clear from this person's current posture of bowing and waiting. Jiang Wang didn't purposely disrespect him and directly asked, "What business do you have?" Yin Air cupped his fists and said respectfully, "My family's young master is holding a banquet at the warm Jade Water Pavilion. He would like to invite Prince Jiang to take the time to meet him." Pockmarked bow. Jiang Wang frowned and said flatly, "I need to make a trip out. If there's anything, wait until I return to Linzi." After saying this, the curtain of the carriage naturally hung down. The carriage driver pulled on the reins, and the well-trained steed trotted forward. Yenair stood at the side. He was naturally unhappy that he couldn't invite the person. However, he didn't dare to block the carriage. The current Jiang Wang wasn't someone he could offend. Why did Bao Zhongqing come looking for him? Within the carriage, Jiang Wang only casually thought about it. He didn't have a clue and tossed it to the back of his mind. If Bao Zhongqing really had something to talk to him about, he might be willing to have a chat if he came looking for him in a proper manner. As for casually ordering a servant to invite him, to put it bluntly, Bao Zhongqing didn't have the qualifications to do so. In addition, Cheng Gongsheng also said that this pockmarked bow wasn't simple. Someone that Cheng Gongsheng was afraid of was definitely not easy to deal with. Who cares what he's thinking? These shrewd and quick-witted people were hard to guess. He might as well wait for Cheng Gongsheng to return and scheme against him. Jiang Wang closed his eyes and allowed the carriage to move forward. He sank back into his daily cultivation. Chapter 981. From Linzi to Chiuyang County, they only needed to pass through Jichuan County. The official roads in Qi were wide and smooth. Even though Jiang Wang did not ask for speed, the carriage still reached Chiuyang County before nightfall. It was dusk. An old man with a ruddy complexion was waiting outside the Chongxian clan's land. Jiang Wang still remembered him. He was the old servant of Chongxian Xian, the Chongxian Laifu who used to be a tyrant in Qingyang town. At that time, he was even relied on by Hu Xiaoming's father, who only a year had passed, but felt like a lifetime ago. Too many things had happened in this year, more turbulent than many people's lives. The world was too vast. Many stories began and ended at every moment. In every corner of the world, there were geniuses rising and heroes falling. Jiang Wang traveled thousands of miles from east to west. Most of the time, it was just a coincidence. Some of the time, it was because he was determined to catch up. It was not easy to go to the Zhonggenjia ancestral temple on behalf of Cheng Gongsheng. Cheng Gongsheng naturally had to inform him in advance. Chongxian Laifu received the news that Jiang Wang was coming and was already waiting outside the clan's land. When he saw the carriage coming from Linzi, he hurriedly ran over and said eagerly, "Prince Jiang, this way. I have already prepared a room for you. You must be tired from the journey. Take a rest tonight and recuperate. You can go to the ancestral temple tomorrow." He was no longer as arrogant as he was before. He was the son of a servant and was trusted by his master. He had also served Chongxian Xian for many generations. He was also given the surname Chongxian. In fact, he did not need to call himself Old Servant anymore. Even if he called himself Old Servant, he only called himself Old Servant in front of Chongxian Xian. Today, in front of Jiang Wang, he purposely acted humble. As for the current Jiang Wang, Chongxian Xian was eager to flatter him and call him Big Brother, not to mention a servant like him. Jiang Wang didn't want to bicker with him about what happened in the past. He only smiled warmly and said, "Thank you for your trouble." Chongxian Laifu's heart, which had been raised to a very high point, was gently put down. His entire being felt at ease. When he came to welcome Jiang Wang, he was prepared to be beaten, scolded, and humiliated. Because of their earlier disagreements, he could have stayed far away. With Cheng Gongsheng's current status in the family, there were many people who could welcome Jiang Wang. However, because he believed in young Master Sheng, he was now working under young Master Sheng. Jiang Wang was also young Master Sheng's close friend and the person he trusted the most. He didn't want Jiang Wang to hold any grudges against him because of his existence. This time, he had come forward to offer his face to the other party so that the other party would not be angry. However, he did not expect that the famous Tianjiao would be so gentle. "How can I be worthy of young master calling me Lai Fu? Just call me Lai Fu." Chongxian Lai Fu wiped the corners of his eyes and hurriedly turned around. "Please follow me." They walked around the pavilion and soon arrived at the guest room. The room was decorated very carefully. The bed and bedding were all brand new. After Jiang Wang expressed his satisfaction, Chongxian Lai Fu bowed by the door and hinted vigorously, "Young master, you must be tired after such a long journey, right? I'll ask a few people to massage your feet. How about it? They're all very talented young people. They're beautiful and have good skills. Their hands are very smooth." Jiang Wang. Chongxian Lai Fu thought he was hesitating and advised considerately, "Don't worry. They're all top-notch. They'll take turns massaging you. It'll definitely relieve your tiredness. If a few aren't enough, a dozen will do." He had put in a lot of effort to help his young master Sheng. Jiang Wang controlled his temper. "I really need a rest, okay? You can leave first." "Okay." Chongqing Lai Fu nodded and bowed as he closed the door. However, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he hesitated outside the door for a while before saying, "Master Rabbit, this old servant can also find you. If you scram." Chongqian Lai Fu firmly shut his mouth and hurriedly walked away. This time, he really left. People were complicated. On one hand, this guy relied on the prestige of the Zhonggenjia to fill his own pockets. That time when he showed off his prowess in front of Jiang Wang, it was probably not the only time. On the other hand, he was indeed loyal and devoted to Chongqian Xian. Once they were submissive, they would be meticulous in serving others. He really cared for them from head to toe. What Zhong Xianxing said was right. If there was a need, everyone had their own way of using it. Although Jiang Wang wouldn't continue to bicker with Chongqian Lai Fu, he wouldn't mess around with him either. Jiang Wang only glanced at the tea, flowers, candles, and incense in the room. After confirming that it was safe, he sat cross-legged on the couch and entered a state of meticulous cultivation. After the battle at Tianya stage, many people called him the #1 inner palace disciple of the coastal islands. Of course, this title sounded resounding and glorious. However, he couldn't be ignorant of it. He could suppress all the inner palace disciples of Fishing Sea Tower with his 3 palaces cultivation. It just so happened that the top inner palace disciples of Fishing Sea Tower had broken through. The first batch had jumped to the outer palace or even the divine ascension realm, while the second batch hadn't had enough time to grow. It wasn't true that he was invincible in the inner palace. Even if he added the restriction of the coastal islands, he still might not succeed. Putting everything else aside, Mog Valley alone had an inner disciple who was capable of fighting against him. However, Mog didn't need to force himself to do so. Moreover, just being the #1 inner palace disciple of the coastal islands was far from enough to stop him. He was still too far away from the mountain he wanted to climb. Most of cultivation was a painstaking effort. The birth of each Tao essence, the dismantling of each Tao technique. If one wanted a day of glory, one would need 10 years of bitter cultivation. Jiang Wang understood this a long time ago. He opened his eyes and left the room when the sun was about to rise. He stayed in a guest room arranged by Chongshuan's Lai Fu. It wasn't in the core of the Chongxian clan's territory. He guessed that Chongshuan's Lai Fu was to make it easier for them to arrange things. After all, it wasn't nice to openly ask people to take turns to massage their feet. However, it made things easier for Jiang Wang. When he left, he didn't make a sound. No one noticed. According to the information sent by Lin Yuxi, Chu Mi and his master were punished to go to the bewildering world. It was related to the famous Lu Xuanhu of the Fufeng Ryu clan. Lu Xuanhu's talent was terrible, and his cultivation was mediocre. He couldn't increase his cultivation even if he piled up resources. No matter how useless he was, he had many good things that many people couldn't even imagine. Naturally, it entered the eyes of those who were observant. Chumi's master was one of them. One could imagine how dangerous it was. Stealing from Lu Xuanhu was equivalent to stepping on the face of the Fufeng Ryu clan. It was already fortunate that he wasn't killed on the spot by the Ryu family. No matter how weak the Fufeng Ryu clan was, they were still one of the top families in Qi. They weren't people that Liang Shanglo could offend. Strictly speaking, it wasn't wrong for Chu Mi's master to be punished to go to the bewildering world. In fact, Chu Mi's disciple who followed his master died in the hands of the Ryu family. As for whether Chu Mi was a part of it or not, whether he turned himself in because he wanted to live or because he wanted to share the blame with his master, even Lin Yuxi couldn't confirm it. Now, it had become an eternal mystery. The only thing that Jiang Wang could confirm was that before the border river, Chu Mi shouted, "Cross the river!" Since he left the bewildering world alive, he should take a look no matter what, even if Chu Mi didn't say anything before he died. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.